Network administrator Gary Wagner is suing his stepdaughter's ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Frank Farrell, for a loan and a bill for pornographic websites.
Come to order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Yeah, this is case number 338 on the calendar in the matter of Wagner versus Farrell. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Wagner, the defendant is the former boyfriend of your stepdaughter. I assume that this is your stepdaughter?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? You claim a loan to him, and then you claim that he and your stepdaughter moved into an apartment together. The phone was installed in your name, and it is your claim that Mr. Farrell made a lot of calls on that phone to porn sites, running up a bill of almost $1,000. You want him to pay for that?
Yes, ma'am.
I might have been just as happy that he wasn't my stepdaughter's boyfriend, but... Go ahead, Mr. Wagner. First loan. Your stepdaughter and her boyfriend were on their way to a family wedding. They called you, they said the car broke down. Go.
Okay, they broke down in Florida. They called and asked for some money, and so I wired them the money, and they then picked up the money and came back. I have a receipt for the hotel and also from Western Union.
What makes you think you're going to get that back?
Just because I was helping him understand that, you know, half of it will be CJ's responsibility as well.
I don't hear anything about a loan, sir. Who called you?
No, Carolyn did.
Car broke down, we need some money. So you sent her money.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of an arrangement did you have with him to pay you back?
I told my wife, and she had told Carolyn and Frank that upon their return back, that they would pay us back.
That's a lot of baloney. She called you. You said you spoke to her.
Yes,
Never
ma'am.
spoke to him. You feel all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then stand up straight. That's not a loan, Mr. Wagner. It's
Okay.
not a loan. What's next? They moved in together?
They moved in together, and because she had just had a baby, wanted to put a phone in. No, ma'am. It was another guy's baby, but he had stated that he was willing to take care of her and the baby.
He was. What kind of work do you do?
I was employed at the Waffle House.
At a Waffle House?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you doing now?
I'm currently not employed. I'm going back to school to get my diploma.
You have any physical problems, Mr. Farrell?
No, ma'am.
You ever been in any programs?
No, ma'am.
You have a drug problem?
No, ma'am.
So you thought, Mr. Wagner, that he was going to support your stepdaughter working in a Waffle House. You seem like an intelligent man, Mr. Wagner.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you honestly believe that this young man in his job from a Waffle House was going to be able to support anybody but himself?
Well, was hoping, yes.
Hope springs eternal, Mr. Wagner.
Okay.
So you put a phone in the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened?
I told Carolyn and Frank that it was to be no long distance, no call waiting, none of that. Around the beginning of September, Carolyn called upset because they had $1,000 long distance phone calls on the phone, and I called up the phone company, and they said that Frank Farrell had set up long distance with Sprint. And
Did you do that, Mr. Farrell?
No, Your Honor.
You didn't set up a long distance with Sprint? Let me see the long distance numbers, sir. I can figure that out very, very quickly. Mr. Farrell, I'm going to give you one final opportunity. Did you set up a long distance number with anyone?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Where are the numbers that were called?
they're listed, I believe, on the second page where it shows where they were made international calls.
International calls? To where?
To someplace in the islands for adult entertainment.
Cook Island? You know where that is, sir?
No, Your Honor.
This is over a 2-day period, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
August 29th and August 30th. Who was there on August 29th in your house?
Frank Farrell.
Who else?
And me.
Who else? Come on.
Brian and Josh and Michael.
Yeah, somebody else was there, right? Who were
ma'am.
Brian and who were Josh?
His brother and a friend.
Who else was there on the 29th and the 30th?
I think my sister.
How old is your sister?
She just turned 16.
What am I supposed to do with this, sir? How do I know it was him?
Well, the bill is in his name.
So let him pay it. What are you bothering me for? They'll come after him. Frank Farrell.
No, well, because they put it to the phone bill that is in my name that I'm having to pay.
Why? If this Sprint bill is in his name, what does it have to do with you?
Because it was attached to my phone.
Well, tell him to get it off.
I've
you
tried,
never-
and they said that they won't do it because they already paid the bill.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You going to school?
No, ma'am.
You working?
No, ma'am.
What are you doing?
Staying at home.
Staying home at age 18 and doing nothing is not an option. Get a job.
And later today,
How much are all of the taxes on the property?
$2,730.44.
Well, he paid $2,306.
I know nothing about that.
Well, you got to start talking to each other.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Gary Wagner is suing his stepdaughter's ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Frank Farrell, for a loan and a bill for pornographic websites.
Let me explain something to you, sir. There is no way that you can establish that he was the one who made these phone calls. There were other people in the house. Her sister, his brother's friend, and God knows who else. All I know is this. This bill is in Frank Farrell's name. You never opened an account with Sprint. I don't care what Sprint tells you. It seems illogical to me that you would buy the fact that we're going to go after you because you have the phone. This bill is in his name, so you better get it off my phone bill. Go after him. He works in a Waffle House. Find him. She living home now?
Yes, ma'am.
With the baby?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How old are you?
18.
And how old's your baby?
6 months.
You going to school? Step up. You going to school?
No, ma'am.
You working?
No, ma'am.
What are you doing?
Staying at home.
Who else stays at home?
My mom.
Why don't you make arrangements with your mom to get a job in the evening when your baby goes to sleep? What's wrong with that?
I'm trying.
That's trying. You don't have to try. You can bag groceries in a supermarket. You can work in a fast food store. You can do whatever you like if you're not skilled. If you choose to have a skill, then what you do is you beg your mother to babysit a couple of nights a week so that you can go back to school and develop a skill so that you don't have to bag groceries for the rest of your life. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
But staying home at age 18 and doing nothing is not an option. Goodbye, Mr. Wagner, and good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We got the phone bill from the phone company and told Frank that he needed to pay his bill, and he's saying that he's not going to.
He's right, I'm not going to pay him because there's no reason why I should have to.
Get more trust with people before you start assuming responsibilities for them.
Reservations agent Rosemary Harris is suing her son's former common law wife, 25-year-old customer service rep Rebecca Cardisco, for a series of unpaid loans. Rebecca says the money was meant for her children's Christmas gifts.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 193 on the calendar in the matter of Harris versus Cardisco.
Thank you, Bird.
Quite welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Miss Harris, is this your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the son that has 2 children with this lady?
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendant owes you some money for a series of loans. She and your son, I assume, lived together or were together for a period of time because according to what I've read, they have 2 children together.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are your grandchildren?
3 and 1. And John also has 2 stepsons, which were Rebecca's children.
Well, they were never married.
No, but he has custody of them.
He has custody of her 2 children that are not his biological children.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have custody of all 4 children. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is wrong with you? Shh, quiet.
We're going through custody right now.
No. I could understand when you have a custody dispute involving parents, 2 biological parents, judge has to weigh what's in a child's best interest. But when a judge, unless the judge is educated on Jupiter, gives non-biological children to not even a step-parent, because the 2 of you were never married, to somebody else, there has to be something wrong with you. Do you have a drug problem, an alcohol problem?
I did, Your Honor. I did have a drug problem, and he doesn't have full custody of the children. It's going through social services.
Well, but who do they live with 5 days a week?
Right now, him.
Fine. So, and they go to school from his house?
Yes.
So right now he has custody?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you in a drug program?
Yes, I am.
Did you go into a residential program?
When I get back in town, I am.
So you are not now in a residential drug
No,
program?
but I'm in outpatient program right now.
How long were you using drugs?
For 3 years. After I had my daughter, I got in a car wreck and had a lot of back problems.
Oh, everybody has back problems. But not everybody becomes addicted to drugs. Okay. Tell me about the loans.
Okay. Basically met Becky in March of '98. when she was living with another boyfriend in the same complex we did. They broke up and she needed a place to stay, and she finagled her way into my house and lived with us for a couple of months, and then her and John started a relationship. Then the first grandchild was born in 9 of 99, and from that point on, it started being just a big con. Every couple months, every couple weeks, she needed this or needed that or needed help with this. Then they broke up for a while, and she had her own apartment and would hold the baby almost hostage. If you want to see your granddaughter, you'll give me this. She had a car wreck in 11 of 99, and that's when she got her back hurt and started taking Vicodin and Zoma and got addicted to them. And then she got pregnant again with my second granddaughter and had her
Also no testament to his good judgment.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was born in March of 2001.
Now, when she lived with you, she also lived with you with her other 2 children.
Yes, ma'am. I supported her and her 2 children then. And then, after the second baby was born, she really got deep into the drugs. She, at one point, had 8 drug felonies on her. 2 of them were where she used my name to get the drugs. And she was actually able to con her way out of those charges. She got something called drug court, where she gets to go in and talk to somebody once a week. And
at what point did they remove the children?
In May of this year.
Were either of the girls born with any sort of drugs in their system?
No, ma'am.
Were either of them tested?
No, ma'am, so there's no way to know for sure.
Where does your son live now, Miss Harris?
My son lives in Fort Collins with the children, and I travel there every day to help him with the children.
Stand up. Who takes care of the children?
Oh, I do. My mother helps.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
Construction.
How do you support yourself?
Right now, I don't have a place to live. That's why when I go back, I'm going into treatment.
How do you expect her to give you any money?
In July of this year, Becky claimed she got a $50,000 insurance settlement.
Did
she
you?
went out and bought a new car.
No, I
Did
didn't.
you?
No, I didn't. My grandmother.
Did you get any money?
My grandmother gave me a couple thousand to get me a car so I could get a job.
And what'd you do with the car?
It broke down.
Did you ever tell Miss Harris that you got a settlement for something?
I did tell her I had gotten some money and that I would give her some. I did tell her that. But I didn't have any. And as far as...
You didn't have any what?
I didn't have any money.
So what you told her was a lie?
Yes, Your Honor.
How much money do you owe her?
I do owe her money. She did give me money for Christmas. I'm not going to say I don't owe her anything, because I do.
So I'm asking, how much do you owe her?
I don't know for sure. I mean,
how much does she owe you for Christmas?
For Christmas alone, $800. But prior to that, I gave her $500 for rent in November, $500 again rent for January and and I even had to take loans out from where I worked for me to survive because I was giving her money.
Did you expect to get that money back?
Yes,
Ms.
I
Harris,
did.
my question is, seriously, did you expect to get that money back from her? And I mean, you can get a judgment, but I'm going to ask you honestly.
Yes, ma'am.
Where is she going to get the money from?
She would actually sit there on the phone in front of me and be talking to the insurance guy. Actually sit there talking to him, but she actually wasn't talking to him. And she was having a conversation with nobody. Yes, I'll come down and get that check. At one point, I mean, several times she was supposed to pick up a check. She had John and I believing she got a $50,000 check. She was throwing money around. She went and got a $150 perm. She gave me a $100 bill one time to thank me for watching her kids because she'd been out of the house for almost 3 months. I actually thought she was getting a settlement. Then I find this letter in the house. She settled for next to nothing in November of 2000.
Let me see.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You didn't tell them that you were settling it. You just wanted the money right away.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I know. But you're doing drugs. You need some money for drugs. Nonsense! Nonsense!
And later today,
if she's the co-signer on a note for your car, then you're supposed to pay for the car.
Right, which I pay her for.
Let's go slowly, Mr. Gaffney. My father didn't raise idiots.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rosemary Harris says her son's former common-law wife, Rebecca Cardisco, owes for several unpaid loans. Rosemary claims Rebecca is a drug addict.
So you settled this accident claim despite the fact that you had an attorney. How much did you settle it for?
I think it was around $800. The attorney said that they couldn't get any more, and if they could, it was going to take a long while.
You didn't tell them that you were settling it. You just wanted the money right away.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
say
I know.
was settling.
That's what you did. You had a lawyer. They got fed up with you because you settled with this company after they had made some expenditures. But you're doing drugs. You need some money. You need some money for drugs. Look, as far as I can see, she owes you for 3 months' rent and $800 for Christmas. She doesn't know how much she owes you. That's $2,300. Has she, I assume, not given you any child support for the 3 children?
Not as of yet, no.
Have you worked in the last 5 years?
Yes, Your Honor, and he did receive child support last month.
How much?
I gave him $500.
From where?
Between him and his mother.
From where?
I got some money from my grandmother.
From your grandmother?
She gave me some money to give him for the children. He said that he needed it for the children. And I have a job.
Do you use drugs or do you sell them occasionally?
I don't do either. I've been clean.
Judge, there is a judgment now. She's supposed to pay $575 a month.
Good. That's what she's supposed to do. Somebody else is taking care of your children. In the meantime, she owes you $2,300. Miss Cardisco, I wish you good luck in residential treatment. If you want it to be successful, you have to stay there. You can't go in there for 6 weeks, or for 4 weeks, or for 12 weeks and say it's over. You have to stay there. What is it, a year or 18 months? Is that what they want you to stay?
60 days. 60 days.
Nonsense! Nonsense! Bert and I were in family court between us for more years than you're alive. And no residential program where you just go for 60 days is going to keep you off drugs permanently. You have to go into a drug-free environment for a long time. You've been on drugs for at least 3 years. Don't kid yourself. 60 days is not going to do it. 30 days is not going to do it. You have to do it. You have children. You made children. They need you. Do you get it? They need you. Stay with it. Find the right place and stay there. You're a young woman. How old?
25.
25. Got a lot of years ahead. They can be miserable. You can have a miserable life or you can have a happy life. You still have another 50 years of happiness or you have 50 years of misery. Choice is yours. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Becky's nothing but a con.
I do have problems and I have issues, but they're not any better than I am. Any better.
I'm the primary caregiver because Becky's a drug addict.
I never kept her grandchildren from her. I was afraid she was going to try to take off or do something with them. I didn't know what she's capable of. I mean, she just made me look like an idiot in there.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Eddington versus Hammond. Step forward, please.
Gas station manager Tracy Eddington is suing her former landlords, Michael Hammond Sr. and his son Michael Jr. for the cost of a motel room and property damage caused by a squirrel.
Miss Eddington, the defendant is your landlord. Who's the landlord?
I am, Your Honor.
And who are you, sir?
I'm the manager of the business. We have apartments throughout town.
It is your claim that because you detected that there was someone else living in your apartment, or something else living in your apartment that wasn't paying rent. You heard the scratching through walls. You didn't know exactly what it was. You called one of these 2 gentlemen. Nothing was done, according to you. And as it turned out, it was a squirrel that eventually found its way into your apartment, caused a great deal of damage. You want to be reimbursed for the damage that this unauthorized tenant did to your kitchen and other parts of your house, as well as the motel stay. How long have you been a tenant of the defendants?
A little over 3 years.
Miss Eddington pay her rent on time?
No complaint with it.
So it's been fine?
It's been fine.
Great. When did you start to hear this little critter in your apartment?
It was March 12th of 2002. I was sitting at my table and I heard something in the kitchen. I thought it was my 2 cats.
Stop playing with paper, I can't hear.
Until they walked past me and the noise still continued. And that's when I got up to see the squirrel run across my feet and back down in the basement.
So the little thing actually went across your feet?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
I got on the phone and called Mike Jr. and told him that I saw a squirrel in the kitchen. And he told me that they had a boiler out at a different facility and that he would get someone there as soon as he could.
When was as soon as he could?
March 18th, almost a week later. The squirrel came in on Tuesday. That Friday, I came home to plants all over the place, food, clothing. The squirrel had relieved himself on my microwave, ate up plants, chewed through a maple syrup bottle. I have pictures of the squirrel. I have dead and alive pictures of the squirrel.
How'd you get pictures of the thing when it was alive?
Well, I called someone and they told me what to do to try and get him out of the apartment. They said to take peanut butter and put it on bread and leave little trails for him. And he went for the bread, but he went back under the stove each time with his food. So I was able to grab my camera off the table and take a picture of him.
Is this a squirrel in a box?
That's the dead squirrel. I'm not quite sure how he died.
How did he die?
We had a mouse problem, and I put mouse bait down in the basement, and I think it got to him, and he died in my box of clothing.
So before the defendant found time to come back to your apartment, all this damage was done?
Yes. Friday night, I just grabbed my cats and some clothes, and we went to a motel.
How long were you at the motel?
9 days. That following Monday, they did put a trap with crackers in it, and I did go back, and there was never any squirrel, and then my brother finally found the squirrel dead in the box.
When did he find the squirrel?
March 23rd, the last day I was at the motel.
Okay, who wants to talk?
I would, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
The first time we had a phone call, we documented everything, the phone calls, was the 15th, which was on a Friday.
She says she called on March 12th. Did you call on March 12th?
I called the day that the squirrel came into the apartment.
Which was March 12th. How do you know it was March 12th?
I remembered I wrote it down.
Do you remember what day of the week it was?
That's a Tuesday.
Did you call after that Tuesday?
I called every day after that.
Okay, so the first time you documented her phone call, it was March 15th. Is that right?
The first time it was brought to my attention was March 15th, which was a Friday.
Did you speak to him or to somebody else?
I spoke to him.
Maybe you were busy. Go ahead.
I sent a maintenance worker over there with a flashlight to check the apartment, check the basement. He came back with nothing. Tracy called me back later, said she's still hearing sounds. At this point, there wasn't anything seen, it was only sounds. I went back over there personally, went through the basement, went through the apartment, still found nothing. And then on Monday, which was the 18th, Tracy called me in the morning and said the squirrel had gotten in here, he ate my plants. That's when I called the exterminator, met him over there on Tuesday. The 19th was the quickest he could be over there, who did set up a live trap. And according to my records, Tracy's brother found the squirrel Thursday morning.
So
we've got conflicting dates, obviously.
Okay. But it is clear that even if she called on the 15th and she said to you that there is some sort of animal, rodent, and it was a squirrel because I've seen it. I've seen it. I saw it. It ran across my feet. She says the 12th, you say the 15th. Clearly it was before the 18th, which was the date of the damage. That if you had gotten the exterminator out there between the 15th and the 18th, but you have a tenant who's a perfectly good tenant, paid a rent on time, not a pest, who says to you, there's trouble in my apartment. I mean, it's not the kind of trouble that's an emergency trouble because it's not a pipe burst or water is leaking all over the place. It's a squirrel. But when it became an emergency, she had to move out.
For the record, the 15th, when she called me, she was still hearing noises. Didn't actually see the squirrel until the 18th.
I thought you told me you saw the squirrel initially.
I saw the squirrel on the 12th.
Yeah, on the 12th.
Yes.
That's what she said. And I believe she called you on the 12th, and I believe that you were probably involved in a whole bunch of other things. You see, you manage a whole lot of buildings. Is that
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
You got a lot of other things on your plate. She only has one squirrel. She's asking for, as far as I'm concerned, a minimal amount of money. It's just damage to her property, which I see, and reimbursement for motel expenses. She's asking for $581. That seems perfectly reasonable. That's it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $581. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
There's conflicting dates.
It was a danger to me and my cats, and it just wasn't taken seriously.
From the first phone call forward, we wrote the time and dates down.
I felt unsafe.
We were there on time and time.
Make sure all your holes are patched up in your house.
School teacher Kendra Pickering is suing her ex-boyfriend, fireman Charles Cannon, for the cost to attend a football game with the guys. Kendra says instead of paying her back, he went on another excursion with the guys.
Order. All rise. This is case number 321 on the calendar in the matter of Pickering versus Cannon.
Good. Thank you, Bird.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated.
Bird, would you do me a favor, please? You know that pesky fly that we had around here a couple of months ago?
Yep.
Well, he's been resurrected. So could you get me one of those little things that you got me before this?
No problem.
Thank you very much. And Miss Pickering and Mr. Cannon, look like two well-behaved people, so I can manage without you for a minute.
Be right back.
Thank you. Ms. Pickering, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were in a relationship and you made a loan to him. It was a loan so that he could take a trip, some sort of a bus trip, a sports trip with some other men. And you want the money back because the relationship is over.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon says that there was never a loan, that this was sort of a quid pro quo because he had arranged for refinancing on your house at some point. I know you're smiling. We'll get to it.
Okay.
He had arranged for refinancing on your house, saved you a whole bunch of money, and you agreed that he would be paid by you financing this trip. That's your defense.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
I know it was on the lip. Anyway, thank you. So, Ms. Pickering, were you and the defendant living together?
No, Your Honor, we were not. We were dating.
Objection.
Listen to me. Listen. Don't interrupt her. Do you understand? You will have an opportunity to speak when she's finished.
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
When I divorced my husband and moved back to South Carolina, Mr. Cannon was one of the people contracted to move my furniture back to South Carolina from Georgia. I was reintroduced to him at that time. We went to middle school together. Immediately after I returned, we began dating.
But never lived together?
Never lived together, but he spent most of the time with me. It was very, we talked about getting married. He talked about how it was destiny for us to be together.
Don't frustrate me.
Yes, ma'am. I was just saying, let's get to
No.
Yes.
When I look at your direction and ask you a question, you're going to speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Other than that, you're not going to speak.
Okay.
So when I said you didn't live together, the answer was we didn't live together, we dated.
We dated.
Fine. Tell me about this loan that you made to him, when that was, because there were two parts of the loan.
Exactly. Mr. Cannon and I had been supportive of each other, making small loans back and forth financially to help each other out when needed during the time that we dated. This particular occasion, in October, he sponsored a trip for
October
the guys.
of what year?
October of 2001. He sponsored a trip to a Falcons football game in Atlanta. At some point, he did not have the money to pay for the tickets. So he asked me if he could borrow the money.
How much money did he need?
It was $960 for the tickets. Although we had exchanged money before loaning process, I felt very uncomfortable with this amount.
Well, had the previous loans been smaller loans?
They had been much smaller, $50, $100, $150. So, and it had been repaid. Because I felt uncomfortable, I wrote the check to the travel agency.
Can I see that, please?
I would not write it to him, nor would I give him cash. I was under the assumption that when the guys boarded the bus, that they would pay the remaining balance. When they returned from the trip, I heard of how wonderful it was.
When was the trip?
The trip was in November.
Okay.
I heard of how wonderful it was and received a magnet, but not my money.
Okay.
At that point, I did not question him about it. I was hoping that he would do the right thing because, once again, this is someone I wanted to marry. Later on, in the 11th, November, he also borrowed money again and again in December.
Well, what did he borrow money in November for?
I was under the impression that it was Christmas gifts. During this time, I've been throwing hints that I wanted an engagement ring. I'm hoping that this was for that purpose.
So you were giving him money hoping that he would buy you a ring?
I was giving him money hoping that it would help him purchase the Christmas gifts for his children and then have extra to do what I wanted him to do.
How much did you give him in November?
In November, I gave him a check of $135, and I clearly marked on there that it was a loan. And in December, I also gave a check of $50. And I marked that that was a loan as well.
Miss Pickering, he hadn't paid you back the October money yet. Why are you giving him more money?
At that time, we were talking about moving in together. I was, lack of a better judgment, I was a fool for love.
Right. Okay. I'm not interested in these two little loans. I'm not interested in that because that comes under the category of stupidity. If you lend somebody almost $1,000 and they don't pay you back when they get off the bus and you lend them another $50 and another $135, then you're not too smart.
But once again, Your Honor, he was promising me the whole time, making promises. This is someone.
Promises of what?
Of commitment, of relationships.
Just a second. I don't
repaying.
care about commitment relationship. That's not my job. You want to go commitment relationship? Go on Jerry Springer. If you want to come here, this is a court. Court, you talk about if he's making statements. He was making statements about returning the money.
Exactly.
That's all I'm interested in.
And he had returned money in the past, and I indicated that it was a loan on the check.
I understand that, madam. You're not following me. If you give somebody almost $1,000, which you said to me a moment ago was more money than you had ever given them, and you thoroughly expected him to have the money as soon as he put his keister back on land where you were, and all he gave you was a magnet.
Yes, sir.
Right? Then when he comes to you and says, I need another $135, I need another $50, you say, you're not getting another penny, my dear, until I get back my $960. And if you do, deal with it. And I don't want to hear about commitment. Commitment, we go someplace else. Commitment, we don't deal with here. All right. Let me hear from you.
I'm glad you settled that for me, Your Honor.
Don't thank me yet. I'm not finished with you. Where's her $960?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So I, being the wonderful person that I am, tried to save her a lot of money by letting her go through one of my mortgage brokers.
What did that cost you?
It didn't cost me anything. What it did, it saved her thousands.
Right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kendra Pickering says ex-boyfriend Charles Cannon owes for the cost to attend a football game with his friends. Charles says he saved her thousands by helping to refinance her mobile home.
Go ahead.
Actually, it should be a balance of $40 owed to me.
Just tell me where, hon.
Because at the time, right before, I think it was right around September, I was working part-time selling mobile homes. By doing that, I was involved and had relationships with several different mortgage companies. At the time, Miss Pickering was talking about getting a house refinanced. She had went around to several different other mortgage companies.
I did not. I don't want to hear you.
Thank you.
Talking. Keep talking. I can multitask.
Actually, she was thinking about refinancing the house through the mortgage company she was in at the time that she was thinking about refinance. So I, in being the wonderful person that I am, tried to save her a lot of money by letting her go through one of my mortgage brokers.
And what did that cost you?
Actually, it didn't cost me anything. What it did, it saved her thousands.
Right. Didn't cost you anything.
So, I agreed. I said, well, look, she's getting $13,000 back. I said, well, I agree to set you up with the guy. Just give me a $1,000 referral fee.
What kind of character are you?
We wasn't in a relationship. This is kind of a
character
her
are you?
imagination of this marriage.
Listen to me. What kind of character are you?
Wonderful. You know,
No. No. Not wonderful. Not
I had
wonderful.
to pay. What, could you quit
Not
asking?
wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
And don't tell me no relationship, because although I'm not entertaining these things, clearly she gave you this money.
Well, it wasn't to the extent that she's saying, you know.
Don't give me extent. Whether you have a little extent, sir, that's your problem, or a bigger extent, that's maybe everybody's problem. He has a smaller extent, he won't acknowledge that.
Well,
listen to me very carefully. If you have even a smaller extent relationship, which will be your long-term problem.
Yes, ma'am.
Or not.
Yes, ma'am.
If you are in a relationship with somebody and intimate with somebody, and if they need something and it doesn't cost you anything, because you know somebody who could help her out getting refinancing for her house, and you hook her up with that person, then you don't be a pig and say, well, I'm saving you all this money, so why don't you give me a little bit of money, because I saved you all that money. You say, I'm glad I could do something nice for you.
I was
but,
only doing the American way.
But do it the American way with somebody else that you're not sleeping with, sir.
Well, Your Honor,
Well, don't give me well, Your Honor. You owe her $960. She gave it to you. Why don't you give the money back to her and say finished?
My point is, the big point is, this was not an issue until she came to my house one evening, and I said, look, I don't want to be bothered. Okay, this was over a year after. She didn't file this till after a year after.
I don't want to hear. Yeah, so?
It wasn't a big issue till she came to my house.
Yeah.
Way out of control. I said, look, I don't want to be bothered. I'm ready to move on. And the police department had to come by. They told her, look, ma'am, you need to leave. And then she came up with the issues about the money. And they said, well, if that's the problem, you need to go file
Good.
it in court.
So if this lady is saying to you, this is standing in the way of my moving forward, clearly you benefited from this money. Clearly I gave it to you, $960.
Yes, ma'am.
I feel as if I've been used. You don't want a relationship anymore, and you don't want to return the money. Relationship, I can't force you. But the money, I want you to pay me. Then you give her the money. It didn't cost you any money, right?
I didn't
So
get
you
my
act like a
referral fee.
man, whether you have a big commitment or a little commitment. You give her back the money. $960, judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He knows that he's made promises of love, commitment, gave me a ring at Christmas, and now he denies all of this?
It was spoken about.
I'm just in awe at how he could lie.
Homemaker Gail Michaud is suing the mother of her daughter's friend, Secretary Lisa Canfield, for helping her daughter run away from home.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 257 on the calendar in the matter of Michaud versus Canfield. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Miss Michaud, you have a teenage daughter who's been giving you some trouble, I gather. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant, who also has a teenager who's a little bit of a problem, the defendant assisted your daughter in running away from a shelter where she was placed. During the course of this running away, she committed a series of crimes for which you have been held responsible for the fines.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are suing her for interfering with your daughter's custody,
Yes, ma'am.
which caused you not only emotional distress, which you are suing for, but also the payment of these fines that you had to pay through the courts for the various crimes that your daughter committed while on the run.
Correct.
And you say that that was facilitated by the defendant's conduct in harboring her.
Correct.
The defendant says that she didn't know that all of this problem was going to develop when she went and picked your daughter up from a gas station where she had placed a call, that she in fact tried to get her to return and turn herself in when she found out that she had done some of these things, that she was really only trying to help.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's your daughter?
Over there.
This
in the black, ma'am.
Step up here. What's your first name?
Amber,
How old are you, Amber?
17,
How old were you when all this trouble started? 17 or 16?
16.
Does the defendant have a daughter who's a friend of yours?
She used to be my friend.
What's her name?
Lissy,
Spell it.
Lissy.
Now, where were you and Lissy? Were you in a facility, in a shelter?
We were in Antrim Girl Shelter together.
And how did you get to this girl shelter?
I was put in the girl shelter for not going home for a week, the week I stayed at Lissy's house.
So your mother put you there?
No, the judge put me there because I was on probation and I was court ordered
You
to
were
be
on
home.
probation for what?
A lot of stuff. I don't remember exactly.
Well, was you on probation for stuff that involved your mother or stuff that involved the rest of the community, like shoplifting and stealing?
Stuff that involved the rest of the community.
So you had been arrested for committing a series of petty crimes?
Yes.
You were placed on probation. A condition of your probation was that you were to stay at home.
Yes.
And have a curfew. And
Yes.
do all the other things that a normal 16-year-old does.
Yes.
And you violated your probation according to you. I'm just trying to put this in English so that everybody, including Bird, understands it.
Okay.
So you were told that you had to do everything right, and then you wouldn't go to jail.
Yes.
But you didn't. You went to stay at Miss Canfield's house with Lissy for a week.
Yes.
And then you were placed in this shelter by the judge because you violated the terms of your probation.
Yes.
When were you placed in the shelter with Lissy?
We met up in the shelter. I've been to the shelter like 3 times. And we met up there the first time I was there. And then it was Thanksgiving time. I stayed at her house because my probation officer told me that if I didn't stop getting in trouble, he was going to put me back in the shelter. So I went and stayed at Lissy's house. And then I decided to go home the day after Thanksgiving. And then I got sent to the shelter.
She was arrested the day after Thanksgiving, Your Honor. She called me from the Canfield residence and asked me if I was going to call the cops if she came home. I told her I wouldn't. When I hung up from her, I called the police station and told them, my daughter's on her way home. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to call you and tell you that she's here, and hang up the phone. And when she pulled in the driveway in the Canfield truck, I called the Dover Police Department and said, Amber's home, and hung up the phone. And the next thing I know, there was cops everywhere. And I did not inform her that I was going to do that. I did it because I needed to protect her. She wasn't protecting herself.
Okay. Had you, in fact, called Mrs. Canfield during this Thanksgiving week when she wasn't at the shelter?
No, ma'am, I did not. I did not know where my daughter was the week of Thanksgiving. I didn't know about Mrs. Canfield and Lizzie, other than Lizzie was Amber's friend. Amber would ask to go to Lizzie's house before Thanksgiving, and I let Amber go, not knowing the type of home that it was at the time.
Well, why didn't you know?
I guess ignorance on my part. Amber just said it was a friend of hers.
That's your job to know.
Yes, ma'am.
If you let your daughter, who's been in trouble before, go to a girl's house, and I assume you knew that she met Lizzie at the shelter, right?
I wasn't sure where she had met Lizzie.
Well,
I've met
did you
Lizzie.
ask the question, where did you meet Lizzie?
No, ma'am.
You're trying to place blame on this lady.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm coming back to you and I'm saying, maybe partially her fault, but let's come back to you. What information did you have or should you have had with proper exercise of your parental responsibility? What quality information could you have gotten if you asked a few questions or did a little digging? You would have found out that Lizzie was a girl that she met at the shelter, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would have told you one thing. Trouble! Then when she said, I want to spend some time at Lizzie's house, say, okay, I'm going to get in the car and go over to Miss Canfield's and we're going to have a chat because just because you met her at the shelter, maybe she's not a girl who's all bad. Maybe it would be good for you to be together. But let me speak with Mrs. Canfield and find out what kind of a lady she is, what kind of a house it is, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You did none of that?
No, ma'am.
So there's a little, on your side, a little blame.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What gives you the right to say if I can't deal with my daughter and she's bipolar?
Amber's bipolar,
This one's
Your Honor.
probably bipolar too.
Yes, ma'am.
Possible bipolar, possible just bad.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Gail Michaud says when her daughter, 17-year-old Amber Burley, ran away from home, she was aided by Lisa Canfield. Gail says during that time, Amber committed a series of crimes.
Now, when you ran away, Amber, you committed another series of crimes, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Like, what did you do?
When I left the shelter, I left with their van and...
The shelter's van?
Yeah.
How industrious of you.
Yes. It wasn't good on my half, and I also took allowance money.
What do you
to
mean
where I was
allowance
going.
money? Whose allowance money?
Like, they put all the girls' allowance money in one.
All the girls, not just your allowance. So you stole money from the
Yes.
shelter. So you stole both the van and money.
Yes.
And you left with Lissy?
Lissy was at home. She had called me and told me that she was coming to get me because I had court in 2 days and I was supposed to go to the youth detention center.
Sounds like a perfect place for you.
Well, Lissy called and told me she was coming to get me, and then I called her house back and I talked to her mom and I informed her mom that I was coming.
Is that what she said to you?
No, Your Honor, that's not
What
what
did she say?
said. She had called a couple days before and had talked to Lissy, and then at one point had left a message on the answering machine for Lissy. I didn't realize she was going to leave placement at that time.
But you went and picked her up according to the complaint that I read.
A couple nights later at 2 o'clock in the morning, she called me and said she had been in an accident, and I didn't know that she had stolen the van. I didn't know that's how she had left placement, Your Honor.
Yes?
When I called Lissy, I told Lissy.
I'm not talking about Lissy. I'm talking about her mother.
Her mother. I told her mother that I stole the van and the money. I got into a car accident and I needed a ride home. And I told her that I'd give her...
Baloney!
That's not what she said.
Bull! I don't believe that you told her I stole. Okay. I stole the van and I stole money. Please come and get me because I had an accident. That I don't believe. I might believe that you said to her I had an accident and then later on she found out that you had stolen the van. But I don't believe that you right up front said to her I stole the van. Why would she come pick you up? Is she crazy?
Because I gave her $50 for coming to get me. With the stolen money, I said, can you please come and get me? I will give you $50.
That I believe. That you said to her, please, I was in an accident, come and get me, I'll give you $50. That I believe.
After I told her that I stole the money.
That I don't believe.
I did.
I mean, I don't know anything about her. All I know about you is that you're a liar, that you're a thief, that you place your needs over the needs of everybody else. So if I have to rely on my common sense would dictate to me that when you got on the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't say anything that would turn off an alarm in her head and say, I better not get involved with this. That you would say, please, I had an accident, come and get me. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And she said, I don't think I want to do that. And you said, I'll give you $50 if you come and get me. And she may not be the nicest person. I mean, I may not entrust her with my grandchildren, but she doesn't sound to me like she's psychotic. You'd have to be psychotic to come and pick you up when you told her, I stole the van that I'm in, and I stole the money that I have, and I'm going to give you $50 of the stolen money. That doesn't jive with my common sense. In any event, you should have known better, Miss Canfield, because you knew where your daughter met her. You knew a lot more about her than just that she was a nice young girl from around the neighborhood that your daughter was palling around with. So you should have kept your nose out of other people's business.
Well,
right?
what was I didn't feel right leaving her in the middle of a snowstorm.
Tell her to call the police.
In a car accident.
Tell her to call the police, Miss Canfield.
I didn't do that. I just.
Well, I know you didn't do that, but you should have.
Yeah, well, I probably should
Well,
have.
you should have. Why didn't you say to her, why don't you call your mother?
Because she told me her mother doesn't have a license.
When did she tell you her mother doesn't have a license?
A long time ago, when she first started coming to our house.
Call another relative. Do you understand what I mean, Miss Canfield?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you understand that I believe that either through your own stupidity or whatever, you aided her in doing the wrong thing.
And that was not my intention, Your Honor.
Well, it may not have been your intention, but that's exactly what you did. When you went to pick her up, before you went, you did call her mother and tell her, I'm going to pick up your daughter.
Not at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Why not?
Because I didn't even have her phone number.
Why didn't you say to her, give me your mother's phone number? I wanted to know where you are.
Because I figured if she wanted to call her mother, she would have.
There's your problem. She's 16.
And I know that she had some problems with her mother before. That's why she came to my house at Thanksgiving.
That's not your business. You chose to let that be your business.
Because I feel bad for kids sometimes.
You having trouble with your own daughter?
Yes, and that's why I feel bad for kids sometimes.
That doesn't make you a poster mom for Dr. Spock.
No,
that
it
makes
doesn't.
That makes you somebody who's had trouble rearing their own teenage daughter and doesn't make you an expert in child rearing. So you don't have enough parental skills to take care of your own daughter. What gives you the right to take care of somebody else's daughter who's a problem?
That bipolar has nothing to do with parental skills.
Oh, yes, just a second.
It's a disorder.
Just listen to me very carefully. I haven't heard that she's been diagnosed with being a bipolar.
My daughter has.
But what gives you the right to say if I can't deal with my daughter and she's bipolar?
Amber's bipolar,
This one's
Your Honor.
probably bipolar too.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe. You know, a lot of bad behavior has been attributed to a lot. They always like to put a label on things. You know, label instead of just being a rebellious teenager, just being somebody who is naughty, just being somebody who is undisciplined. Possible bipolar, possible just bad. People don't like to use that term. But it is possible. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You believe that Miss Canfield is responsible for all your troubles with regard to this incident. Is that right?
No, ma'am, I don't believe she's responsible for all of them.
Good. You are at least partially responsible. You should have known where
Yes,
she
ma'am.
was.
Yes,
You should have known who Miss Canfield was. You should have visited her home.
Yes, ma'am.
You should have gotten some information about her before you let your daughter go there.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop moving around. Sorry. Okay. Now, what was the extent of your fines?
Right now, I'm still pending fines for something that also took place while I was at Miss Canfield's house. Me and her daughter went to a car dealership and took a bunch of cars. We took them to Miss Canfield's house. They were there for 2 days, and then we woke up one day and decided we were going to go see my dad. So we took one of the cars to Lissy's mom's work. We showed her the car. We told her that we were going to go up to my dad's. And then Lissy decided to go with her boyfriend. I went with my dad. I ended up in a high-speed chase.
You went with your dad?
Yes.
Did your father say, where did you get the car from?
My father called the police on me.
And is that when you got into the high-speed chase?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where you were finally apprehended?
Nope, I was caught at Miss Canfield's house 3 days later.
I see. So you beat the police in the chase?
Yes, and I went to a phone and called Lisa and asked her to come get me.
I see. So in this high-speed chase, you lost them at the border of New Hampshire.
Nope, they followed me all the way to Dover. They were right behind me. We just jumped out of the car, and because it was the town that I lived in, we knew it, and the police officer didn't, so we all just
Who's
ran.
the we? All.
There was me, Randy, Nicole, and Brittany. in the car.
Where'd you get them from?
Lisa's house.
No, they weren't at my house.
Where did you meet them?
Nicole is my best friend. I've known her since I was 12. And
Does she have any psychiatric problems?
No.
Huh?
No, ma'am.
So she's not bipolar?
No, she's not.
Uh-huh. And who else?
Not yet.
I met Randy at Miss Canfield's house.
So how long do you know Randy?
I knew him for like 2 weeks.
He's not bipolar, is he?
He's not. I don't know if he's bipolar.
You don't think you're nuts, do you?
I was. Not no more.
Oh, good. Maybe it was the 5.5 months you spent in the juvenile facility.
Yeah.
When you were in the juvenile facility, I'm really curious about this. Were you on medication?
Yes.
How often?
I took 900 milligrams of lithium once a day.
And now?
Same thing. It's court ordered for me to take it.
You staying closer to home these days?
I live with my mom now.
I asked you if you're staying closer to home.
Yes.
You doing anything like going to school?
I recently enrolled back in high school, and I participate in community service at youth resources.
Not voluntarily, I assume.
Yes, voluntarily.
What happened as a result of stealing the van and stealing the money?
I got a $650 fine, and I spent 5 months and 3 days in the youth detention center.
Oh, well, that's an eye-opener. Did you like it?
No, I didn't.
I assume not. And I assume that you would prefer not to go back there.
No, never.
No, never. You know what the youth detention facility is like after spending 5 months there?
Yes, I do.
Paradise compared to adult jail. Paradise. Miss Canfield, did there ever come a time when your daughter and Amber came to your house and had a couple of cars with them?
When
The answer is either yes or no.
I was at work, so I'm trying to answer you the best I can. I know the car, one of the cars was there because it drove over my septic system, and I saw where it drove over when I got home.
What kind of car was it?
I have no idea.
Was it a new car or an old car?
It was new.
New car?
Yes.
Didn't you ask about it?
Well, it wasn't at my house when I got home. I just know there had been a car at my home because it drove over the back lawn.
Didn't you ask about it?
Yes.
And what did your daughter tell you?
She said they had taken a car, and I told them to take it back.
Did you call the police?
No, I did not.
Look, your problem, Miss Canfield, in all of this is that I gather from the papers that you either were found guilty or pled guilty in the criminal court to somehow interfering with the plaintiff's custody of her daughter. Is that true?
In order to get the deal, I had to plead guilty to all charges.
There you go. So you pled guilty?
Yes, I did.
Ms. Canfield, as I indicated to you before, even if I didn't find that you were responsible in any way for this young lady's antics, you already acknowledged that you were responsible for this young lady's antics, or at least partially responsible by your guilty plea in the criminal court.
Well,
I think that her mother is more responsible than she's willing to acknowledge in not making sure where her daughter was.
Ma'am, I take responsibility for what...
Good. Well, then you're suing the
in my
plaintiff for $5,000. That includes your emotional distress, part of which you're responsible for.
Yes, ma'am.
And the fines. So I think so far she's responsible for all the fines and you're responsible for your own emotional distress. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $650. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I called Lisa, and she told me it was none of my business where my daughter was.
First of all, Ms. Michaud just stood here and lied.
My daughter was in 2 car accidents. Lisa never sought medical attention for her.
And said that I told her it was none of her business.
My daughter was found there by multiple police officers.
I didn't say that. I told her that her daughter wasn't at my house at the time.
With their guns drawn. A gun was put to my daughter's head.
Ms. Michaud called the police. They came to my house.
Because there was a robbery that she harbored another child at her house, a 17-year-old who armed robbed a store.
And this girl was there, and I told them all that they couldn't be there.
I think that I take life more seriously now.
Not allow anybody in my house ever again.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Nelson versus Thomas. Step forward, please.
24-year-old nursing assistant Tritasha Nelson is suing her ex-boyfriend's wife, 22-year-old nurse Natasha Thomas, for vandalizing her car. Natasha is countersuing for harassment.
Are you Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're his wife?
Yes.
And Ms. Nelson, you have children. Father of those children is Mr. Thomas.
Correct.
It is your claim that his wife vandalized your car.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. How long are you married?
4 years.
You have children?
Yes.
How many children?
2.
How old are they?
3 and 1.
And Miss Nelson, how old are the children that you have by Mr. Thomas?
2 years and 4 weeks.
Right.
Okay.
Other than the obvious, Miss Nelson, your car was vandalized when?
It was vandalized on the night of July 4th.
Just a second. July 4th of this year?
Yes.
Did you see Miss Thomas vandalize your car?
No, I was at home.
Mr. Thomas had borrowed your car?
Yes.
Do you have any proof that Mrs. Thomas vandalized your car?
He told me that she vandalized my car.
Stand up. Mr. Thomas, did you see your wife vandalize Miss Nelson's car?
No, ma'am.
Did she confess to you that she had vandalized her car?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever tell Miss Nelson that your wife vandalized her car?
No, ma'am.
What were you doing driving Miss Nelson's car?
Me and my cousin, we went out that night, and we used the car just to go out that night. And he told her before I got home, before I got there, I mean, that I guess they don't get along.
Sit down. Miss Nelson, has he been living with you or with his wife?
He's been living with her for the past, I mean, he was living with me around the time when I got pregnant with my second child.
And what about your first?
No, he told, well, that happened. They were separated. He told me that they were divorced. When I found out that they were still married, I was already pregnant with my first daughter.
So you knew he was a liar? You knew he was a liar when you got pregnant with your second child?
True.
That's what you get. Listen, you have no proof that she vandalized your car.
He told me that she vandalized my car.
He denies that now.
Well, I mean...
I don't know. I mean, he's a liar.
Exactly.
So when am I supposed to figure out when he's lying and telling the truth? Now he's telling the truth, and he's talking to you and he's telling the truth?
Well, his cousin called and told me that she vandalized the car.
You can't tell me what his cousin... Listen to me.
Okay, well...
Well, listen, you're trying to talk over me? You can't tell me what his cousin told you.
Okay.
I just asked him, and he's been sworn, whether his wife confessed. He said no. If you want to be dumb enough to let him use your car, that's your problem.
Exactly.
That's your...
I know, I understand that.
Good.
But when he bought me my car back, he took me outside, showed me the damages, and he said that she vandalized my car. He came in the house, his shirt was all ripped up because she got thrown out of the club because him and her was arguing and fighting, and she told him that she was going to go outside and vandalize my car. She went outside and vandalized my car, and since then I've been telling her I want my car fixed. Yes, I have been harassing her, and because I want my car fixed, the police came and took fingerprints off the car. Every time they come to her house, she won't open the door because she knows she's guilty.
Miss Nelson, listen to me carefully. This is not a talk show. It's a court. You have no proof that she vandalized your car. She probably did it.
I know she did it.
Well, she probably did it. Why in the world you would let him drive your car, I have no idea. Why? He's a liar. He's a two-timer. He's married. You have 2 children with him. So, does that make you smart or dumb? Does that make you smart or dumb?
It was dumb of me again, the second one, but the first one, I mean, I didn't know.
Madam, listen to me. Were you married to him?
No, I wasn't married to him.
Then is there any reason why you should have a child with him?
Well, he shouldn't have lied about not being married the first time.
Listen to me.
And I wouldn't have.
You weren't married to him. Why are you having a child with him?
Like I said, I didn't know that he was still married when I had my first child.
He wasn't married to you.
So?
Go have your car fixed. Not by her.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Basically, she knows she messed up my car.
Basically, this was a waste of time. As you can see, she's ghetto.
Whatever.
Some stuff happened in the past, and I'm not with her no more, and she can't get over that.
Oh, I don't want you. I mean, basically, it's on and cracking now with me and her.
She's threatened me plenty of times. She knows where I live at.
I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that she pays for my car.
Whatever, she's just mad.
I'm going to get even with both of them.
She's woofing.
Because I don't have a care in the world no more.
She just told you she don't care about her kids or anything like that.
I don't care.
I have better class than that.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Edwards versus Douglas. Step forward, please.
Regulatory analyst Tanya Edwards is suing her ex-boyfriend, financial analyst Benjamin Douglas, for the cost of furniture. Tanya says she's paying for items that are in his possession.
Miss Edwards, you claim loans to the defendant for some furniture. And what I gather happened is there was a time that you and the defendant were living together. Is that right?
That's correct.
You also have a child together.
That's correct.
And this furniture was some living room furniture and also some furniture for his son from another relationship.
That's correct.
Is that right?
No,
Is that the furniture?
No, ma'am.
What kind of furniture are we talking about, sir?
We're just talking about regular furniture. I have.
Regular furniture, as opposed to irregular furniture.
Well,
what furniture? So, living room furniture was purchased on her credit card,
correct.
and bedroom furniture for your son
Correct.
was purchased on her credit card.
Correct.
I knew I would get it down to simple English so that we could all understand each other. In what month and year was the furniture purchased, madam?
May 2001.
And when did you leave his residence?
I left his residence in January 2001.
You mean you left his residence before you bought the furniture?
That's correct.
Why did you buy it?
Because at that time we were still together, but we decided to live in different households. I purchased my home, and he decided to live at his own home. At his own home.
But you were going to move back together, and you did for a while.
No, we did not. We never moved back then together.
Your Honor, that was our second time being together. We had previously been together, but I was under the impression that this was going to be a joint venture together with the purchase of this furniture.
So she bought the furniture when she wasn't living with you, is that right?
Correct.
On her credit card?
Correct.
Oh, that makes this case so much easier. You had a relationship, you have a child together, she purchased the furniture on her credit card, put it in your house where you were living alone, not with her.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now you're not together anymore, either living together or not living together, but you're not a couple anymore, is that right?
That would be correct.
That's correct.
That would be correct. And who has the furniture?
I do.
And who's paying for the furniture?
I am.
No, 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 no. No, no, no. That doesn't sound fair to me, Mr. Douglas. Under any circumstances that you have the furniture that she's paying for. Does that sound fair to you?
I mean, no, Your Honor, it doesn't sound.
Good. Look how wonderful this is. What an easy case.
I mean, it doesn't sound fair, but at the same time, I don't feel like the primary cost I should be liable for all of the costs.
Who's sitting on the furniture?
I mean, my butt is sitting on furniture.
That's right. Who's sleeping in your son's bed?
My son.
Who should pay for that? Her? Every month?
No, I mean, I'm not saying that she's liable for all of the charges. I'm just saying that with the intent of us being together, I was under the impression that it was going to be a joint venture.
But it's not anymore. That's your impression, but it didn't happen, sir. So what you could have done is you could have done several things. Let's say that was your intention. And let's say that was the intention of both of you. But it didn't work out, so that you can sell the furniture and say, look, let's pay off as much as we can on this credit card debt. Let's see if we can pay it off. Or if you want the furniture, you can keep the furniture. You take over the credit card bills. But why should she pay the bills and you have the furniture?
I mean, I was in the assumption, like I said, Your Honor, that it was.
I heard it. Don't repeat yourself. I heard it. I mean, doesn't it sound stupid to you? You have the furniture. Your keister is sitting on it watching television. Your son is sleeping on it like a baby. And she's paying the bill. Doesn't that sound ridiculous? It sounds ridiculous to me. Does it sound ridiculous to you?
No.
What?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to Bert. And he might, and I want to tell you something, he doesn't always agree with me. Sometimes he would say, no, you know, the man's got a point.
Well, I mean, you can agree with me. I mean.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,700. That's all.
Why these are excused? You may step out.
If she was concerned about the furniture, she would have pursued this a long time ago.
I'm just finally glad we have everything settled. I don't have to deal with it anymore.
I obviously thought that she was responsible or liable for at least half of the furniture.
Do not purchase anything unless you're married or legally married, and not just common law married.
Don't get no furniture that don't belong to you.
Client service rep Patty Lynn Moore is suing her ex-boyfriend, forklift repairman Donald Hightower, for an unpaid loan to keep him from foreclosure.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Yeah, this is case number 112 on the calendar in the matter of Moore versus Hightower.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Moore, you and the defendant had dated, and according to your complaint, You made loans to him. One large loan for his mortgage and then some small loans for credit card charges. Mr. Hightower indicates that you did pay this money, but there was never a loan agreement and never an agreement to repay you. Is that right, sir?
Yes, sir.
When did you start to date the defendant?
Several months after my son was murdered.
When was that?
March of 2000. Probably about 3 or 4 months after that.
What was the first loan for and when?
In July of 2000, Donald showed me a letter that, the mortgage company had wrote, which showed that they were going to foreclose on his house.
I'd like to see the letter. Now, where were you when he showed you that letter?
At his house.
Were you living with him at the time?
No.
I want you to tell me the exact scenario that came about when he showed you this letter.
Can I kind of tell you what led up to this, my frame of mind? Yeah.
No. I don't want to know about your frame of mind. What I want to know about is the conversation, where you were. It's clear if you were dating him, then you liked him.
Right.
Also, based upon what you told me, what happened to your son in March, you were vulnerable. You were feeling slightly depressed. I understand that. However, this is still a situation where we have to deal with whether this was a loan or not a loan.
Okay.
So I want you to tell me where you were seated in the house, what the conversation was that led up to him showing you this letter.
Okay. I was sitting in the lazy boy chair, and he had all his bills right there, and he showed me the letter.
I mean, he just took this letter and said,
well,
take a look at this?
Everything was sitting right there, and he showed me this letter, because we were talking about how he couldn't, afford to, take me out to dinner, and, he felt bad about it.
It was in that context that he showed you this letter, I can't afford to go out to dinner or whatever because I have all these bills.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I had a lot of money at the time because of the life insurance policy from my son's death. And I felt really bad, because, he has these 2 wonderful children. One, she has Down syndrome, and she is a sweetheart. She's just so full of life. And I just couldn't see these children, August 4th, they were going to foreclose on the house, and where were they going to go? I felt terrible. And I'm trying to be a fixer-upper. I was trying to help them fix the situation. I know that I get a lot of money back from my taxes just claiming one child. So I knew when he gets his taxes back, he'll get $3,000 or $4,000, probably more than I do. And in order for me to negotiate with this Equicorp, place, I called, them up and I said, well, what can we do to get this, straightened out? And they said, well, this amount of money needs to be mailed. So in order to, get him above water, I went and paid $4,500 towards it.
You have proof of that?
Yes, I do. This is a copy of the money order and the original.
Okay. Now after that, what did he say to you?
I'm trying to remember. This was a couple of years ago.
Well, you have to remember.
Your Honor, may I answer that?
No, not yet.
Well, he told me that he had other bills, and that wasn't really going to get him out of, hot water, because he was behind on all these credit cards. He had the banks, calling him constantly. He didn't like to answer the phone because of that. He said, well, I can't pay you back right away. And I said, I know. I said, I don't need the money right now. I have the money right now. I said, but, when you get your taxes back, just go ahead, and give me some money. And you don't have to give me the whole thing. I said, the next year, which was this year right here, give me the rest of the money, and that'll be that. And I said, you don't even have to pay me back the whole thing. It was over $7,000 is what it was. And I said, well, if you'll just make sure you pay me, I'll accept the $4,000.
So you agreed that he would pay you back $4,000?
Not at that time. This was later.
So at that time you didn't talk about him repaying you the money?
Oh, we did. We did, with his taxes, but we didn't negotiate a figure.
Okay. Well, when did you negotiate a figure?
February. I had wrote a letter to him, February 5th, which is right about tax time.
Could I see the letter, please?
And I was like, something was better than nothing.
Would you show this letter to the defendant, please? You recall receiving that letter, Mr. Hightower?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Good, thank you. When you received that letter, Mr. Hightower, what did you do?
I read it.
And after you read it, what did you do with it?
Tore it up and throw it in the trash.
Why?
Because when she did this, I told her not to do it because at the time, I was going through the separation and divorce, also going through a custody hearing. I told her that I not know when I'd ever be able to pay her back.
Are you still living in the house that she...
No, ma'am.
Who got the house?
It's been put on a lot for sale now. I moved out the end of February of this year.
Why?
They foreclosed on it in December.
How many months did you live there after summer of 2000?
I moved out of it February of 2002 of this year.
Oh, so her money helped you stay in that home?
I guess, but also too my
What do you
lawyer.
mean you guess?
My lawyer also helped. My attorney knew what was going on.
You had a
attorney
lawyer?
helped me. Yes, ma'am. When I was going
Lawyer
through
for the custody case?
custody,
And the
separation, and
divorce?
divorce, yes.
Did you pay your lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you pay your lawyer?
$1,500.
Do you still owe your lawyer?
No, ma'am.
So you took this letter and you threw it in the garbage?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot of nerve. You mean you didn't even answer her?
Ma'am, also, too, you got to realize a lot of things going on with her. One time she broke in my house just to show her brother my home through the kitchen and come back bragging about it.
So what?
The next time she went through my mail, took a credit card out of my mailbox.
Stop complaining. I'm asking you a question, sir. You get this letter, you don't respond to it, you take it and you throw it in the garbage. And then what you do is you justify those actions by little petty irritations. I'm asking you, if you couldn't give her back any money, and she clearly expected money over a year ago, why didn't you call her or write her a letter and say, I'm really suffering financially right now?
She knew I was.
How did she know?
She knew how I was.
What do you mean she knew? Were you in communication with her?
She knew that I was trying to raise 2 kids by myself.
Did you get custody of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
Then I suggest that you try to teach your children, Mr. Hightower, what being a person of good character is. You know, just because you're a warm body doesn't mean you're a father. Anything can be a father. Dogs are fathers, cats are fathers, fish are fathers. In order to be a father, a human being father, you're supposed to try to teach your children to have a good moral character. Somebody was nice to you. And what you do is you take the letter, you throw it in the garbage without even a response?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Do you think there's a difference between going through a separation and a divorce and having one of your children suddenly taken from you?
Both of them are very emotional.
One you can cure, one you can't.
And later today,
I was not that close to her. She sped up to go around me.
She's trying to get away from you. If she sped up, she would have hit you straight on. Duh.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Patty Lynn Moore says ex-boyfriend Donald Hightower owes for a loan to keep his home out of foreclosure. Donald says he told Patty Lynn he could never pay her back.
After you loaned him this money, Ms. Moore, how long after that did you stop seeing him socially?
Almost immediately.
And who terminated the relationship?
He did.
Tell me about it.
He didn't see that there was any, he didn't think that we would be able to have a relationship at the time. I was drinking some at the time. No excuse, but...
That's honest.
Alcohol is no place in any relationship, nor is it in anybody's life. It's like a disease. It just ruins.
Are you okay now?
Yeah, as far as the drinking, like I said, just bringing up this emotional stuff, I don't think, you don't ever get over the grieving, I mean, you deal with it, through grievance counseling, but you don't never get over the loss of a child. And
How old was your son?
22. I got the newspaper article.
Mr. Hightower.
Yes, ma'am.
How many children did Miss Moore have?
She had her daughter and her son that she told me about.
And she told you about the son as soon as you met her?
Yes, ma'am.
So you knew that shortly before this business with your home, she had suffered a loss and she had some money.
I didn't know she had any money. I never asked her.
Fine. So let's say you didn't know she had any money, but you knew she had suffered a loss.
Yes, ma'am, and I was sorry that happened.
And you were going through a great deal of turmoil in your life.
Yes, ma'am.
But none of your children died.
No, ma'am.
You think there's a difference between going through a separation and a divorce and having one of your children suddenly taken from you? You think there's a difference? You think there's a difference?
Both of them are very emotional.
Yeah. One you can cure, one you can't. And what I find most obnoxious about your behavior, sir, is that you didn't even bother to respond to this letter. You read it, you tore it up, and you threw it in the garbage. Because you were going through a great deal of stuff on your own. That's what you told me. Good character is what you're supposed to teach your children. If you don't have it, and they don't give classes for it, can't read a book on it, at least once in a while somebody is going to tell you when you have lousy character. You understand each other? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,400. Thank you, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She wants everybody to play her on her symphony.
There's nothing in this world worse than losing a child.
She's just trying to rule people's lives with her own.
I have the right to grieve.
She was just trying to steal my identity.
I don't think he has any identity.
I best just get rid of him, get on with my life.
When a loser is a loser, you're a loser. Why would I want to take the identity of a loser?
Factory worker John Goro is suing his ex-girlfriend, laundromat attendant Janice Berezowski, for damage to his car caused by her 10-year-old son, Justin. Janice says Justin was trying to protect her from a drunk John.
Order. Come to order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 123 on the calendar in the matter of Goral versus Berezowski. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Young man, have a seat, please.
Mr. Goral, you and the defendant have known each other, according to what I've read, for many years.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendant is responsible for damage that her 10-year-old son did to your car.
Yes.
And tell me when this incident occurred and where it happened.
This incident occurred 5/6/02.
Yes?
In front of her house while Justin was working on his bicycle.
You went to her house?
Yes, I did.
In your car?
Yes, I did.
What did you go there for?
To see her.
So you pulled up into the driveway or in front of
Or
her?
in front of the house.
Pulled up in front of the house, and what happened?
Jan got into the passenger side. We sat in the car for a few minutes, and I said, well, hey, let's go up to the store. I wanted to go up to the store. And I cranked the engine up.
And she said, okay, she was going to go
She
to the
was
store.
going to go with me. And
No,
Justin asked, where are you going, Ma? And she told me, nowhere. So I shut the car down. But I turned around and I asked her again. I says, come on, well, let's just go up to the store. So I started the car back up. I proceeded maybe about a foot. This is when Justin ran up to the car with a bike rim, overloaded it onto the windshield. I have pictures.
What do you mean
of it.
overloaded it?
Well, he smashed the window out.
Okay.
I also have pictures of the air conditioning vent before and after, and what he had done with the wrench.
Why do you think he was so upset, Mr. Goral?
Because the mother pampers him too much. Wherever she goes, he's got to go. Like little Bo Beep lost her sheep, you know.
Well, who else was home with him at the time?
Her second oldest son, Nicholas, was home.
All right, you want to tell me your version of these events?
Yes, I went into the car. I had no shoes on. I left the door open, the car door open. I never closed the door.
That car
Justin
door was
asked
closed.
me.
Don't interrupt her.
Justin asked me, Mom, you going somewhere? I said, no, I am not going anywhere. And then Justin responded, my mom's not going anywhere. And then Justin came into the car, pulling me on my lap, saying, come on, my mom doesn't want to go. She said she's not going anywhere. That is when John backhanded him like this to his chest. John proceeded to go a foot about. His feet were out of the car. Then I was yelling at John. John stopped the car. Justin got out. I got out. Then John came out of the car and was upset with Justin because Justin did not want me to go, and I didn't want to go. Justin was afraid for me to go. And John hit him on the shoulder then. Justin then went to throw the bike rim, because he was changing his tire, at John. Not at the car, but it did hit the car.
So you're telling me that the plaintiff put his hands on your son?
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. If it was true that it happened, that's something that you would have indicated in here. Let me tell you, in case you forgot what you swore to in your answer. You said, Justin was upset because he thought John was forcing me to leave and John was drunk. Justin was trying to get me out of the car. When John pulled away, John narrowly missed running over Justin's feet. That's when Justin threw the bike rim that cracked John's windshield. Nowhere in this statement do you say that he got out of the car and put his hands on your son, which any mother would say. So when I ask you a question, you may be in the right and you may not be responsible for what your son did. But if you lie to me, then I'll never know. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right. So let's start again. And let's try to make the stories consistent.
Okay, I left the door open. Justin asked me if I was going somewhere. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. And then Justin said, my mom's not going anywhere. John did, though, push him toward on his chest. He did. And Justin was pulling on me.
You were in the car at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
He was in the car at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
So he didn't get out of the car and hit him on the shoulder?
This was in the beginning.
He didn't get out of the car and hit him on the shoulder?
Not at that present time, no.
No, right.
And then, after John had stopped, Justin was out of the car. John did get out of the car and go to the lawn and hit Justin on his shoulder. He did.
Did you ever hit the child?
No, ma'am, I did not.
I don't believe that he hit him.
May I speak, ma'am?
Yes.
Well, after Justin broke the windshield, I sat there with, I'm astounded. My windshield's broke.
Where were you when the windshield was broken?
I was sitting on the driver's side with both doors closed.
And where was she sitting?
Right alongside of me, it's a bucket seat.
So she was actually sitting there
Yes.
when he hit the windshield?
Yes.
And what happened? What did Justin say after he cracked the windshield?
Next thing I know, I look over and Justin's sticking a wrench into the air vent. And I said, that's enough. I jumped out of the car. But I went towards Justin. But when I looked and seen that her oldest son was standing there, I says, no. I'll just go and call the police. I went home, which I have a police report. And it says that the mother didn't do anything.
No, she didn't.
She didn't do anything.
Justin, stand up next to your mother. You're 10 years old?
Yes,
Why did you crack his windshield?
because he had hit me in the car.
He hit you? How did he hit you in the car?
He had reached over and hit me
Where did he hit you?
in my chest,
You mean he pushed you? That's why you broke his windshield?
and then I hit my head on the window.
Sit down. Before this thing escalated into a major confrontation with your son, why didn't you just get out of the car?
He asked me if he could speak with me.
What was he speaking to you about?
He wanted me to go up to the store with him first. He said, and then we can discuss matters, because we don't get along that well. And he's always calling Justin vulgar names, constantly.
And you have no right to be with him, madam, if he's calling your child vulgar names. Were you drinking that day, too?
No.
Were you drinking that day?
Yes.
Was she drinking that day?
No.
What are you doing behind the wheel of a car drinking?
I wasn't drinking in the car.
You had been drinking. What were you doing driving a car, having had things to drink?
I had a few beers, Your Honor.
Had no reason to get into the car.
But I was capable of driving the car, which
You
I
say.
know it was wrong.
You say.
Yes, ma'am.
You say. Have you ever been drunk in front of her child before?
Yes.
Has there ever been any incident of domestic violence between the two of you where you've been drinking?
I'd say no.
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
His behavior in the past has not been the kind of behavior that you want to expose your children to. And you continue to expose them to him because if he wasn't drinking on that day, there's always tomorrow. You got me?
And later today,
All the wires to the electrical things in my room were cut.
You were angry.
About what?
About what? About being evicted from the apartment.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Gorel says his ex-girlfriend's son, 10-year-old Justin Berezowski, smashed out his windshield. Justin says he retaliated after John hit him.
Mr. Gorel, I believe that you are at least partially responsible for the atmosphere that was created on that day. You have a 10-year-old child who has seen you in a state where you are intoxicated. He's probably seen some instance of, if not real violence between the two of you, words that were exchanged that were not nice. And then you come over to the house. But clearly, his desire not to have his mother leave with you, he tries to act like a protective man of the house. That doesn't mean that you are solely responsible, because I think his mother bears some of this responsibility. Because despite the fact that he says he has been intoxicated in front of you, intoxicated in front of your son, you continue to socialize with him.
You're right.
Right. and your son is outside, and you too know, or you should know as a mother, that your son has witnessed things that a 10-year-old should not witness, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
would you please listen to this, Your Honor?
No.
I have
Please,
something else
it's
to
very
say, Your Honor.
important.
Listen to me. You think that you're not partially responsible?
No, I never said that.
Well, good. That's what I'm saying to you. The damage that we're talking about is $500. You're partially responsible. Put your hand down, sir. You're not paying good attention. You're not getting the whole picture. I get the picture. She likes to have a social relationship with you, even though the two of you together may not do the right thing all the time in front of this 10-year-old child, and the 10-year-old child is reacting to past history.
Can I say something, please?
Yes.
All I did, when he had called me, I asked him if he had been drinking, and he said no.
So, what
So
does
I
that have
did-
to do with what I just said to you? His behavior in the past has not been the kind of behavior that you want to expose your children to. And you have. And you continue to expose them to him, because if he wasn't drinking on that day, there's always tomorrow. You got me?
Yes, ma'am.
You got me? You have exposed your children to things that they should not have been exposed to. And if your son is reacting to that, you're partially responsible. He's partially responsible. But he's not his child. He's your child. So he bears half the cost. Suing for $500, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $250. You pay the rest. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor. Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't think I should have had to pay anything because he was provoked in it.
Takes two to tango.
Stay alone if you encounter men like this.
Cosmetologist Noelle Eskridge is suing her ex-boyfriend, janitor Jackie Curl, for several unpaid loans and for damages from an assault. Jackie is countersuing for mental anguish and harassment.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 45 on the calendar in the matter of Eskridge versus Curl. Parties are sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks have seats.
Miss Eskridge, you claim two things in your lawsuit. First, you claim a couple of small loans to the defendant to help him out with rent and stuff. And you were his girlfriend, according to you. And then you say that at a party, he became enraged about something, threw something at you, and cracked your head open. Mm-hmm. Your head had to be stapled together. You want him to pay for your medical bills, your pain and suffering. Mr. Curl says he has the clue as to what you're talking about. How do you know him?
In November, my neighbor called me, and she told me that him and his girlfriend have an apartment underneath me, that his girlfriend had kicked him and his 4-year-old out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and could I help? I had previously helped her, 3 other people, referring them to the manager. She's my friend, to get apartments, so she knew that I would help. He was staying with my friend's house. I gave her like $60 for rent for him and his baby to stay.
For him?
Mm-hmm, and his little girl to stay.
Okay.
But anyway, after that, in December, he got an apartment in our building. I went to the manager and begged for this apartment.
Okay, and what other money did you give him?
$65 for food one time, $100. He broke out his girlfriend's windows in her apartment on New Year's Eve because she was in the house with one of his friends, and he busted out all the windows, and they were going to evict him. So he asked me, could I help again? Because he was going through a custody thing with this baby, and me and her just hit it off right away, this little girl. I said, yeah. I gave him $100.
Did he ever say anything about repaying this money to you?
Yes, ma'am. He told me as soon as he got through with the custody stuff, on which would be the 16th of May, with his daughter, he would start paying me back this money.
Now tell me what happened with the assault, Miss Eskridge.
He was having a get-together, and I thought it was kind of rude since I helped him out that he didn't invite me. I went to the balcony.
Were you dating him at the time?
Yes, he started wanting me to date him as I was helping him.
Well, did you date him?
Yes, I did, yes.
For how long?
Up until...
how many weeks did you date him?
About 8.
8 weeks. Okay, so you dated him for 8 weeks, and then he had a party and he didn't invite you.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to the balcony of your apartment or his apartment?
His.
So you went to the party even though you weren't invited?
I went to the balcony. I didn't go inside. I didn't go inside. I just went to the balcony. He was standing out there just to talk to him.
And what happened?
I asked him something, and we started arguing. Next thing I know, I looked down. He had something in his hand. But as soon as I saw it in his hand, I was hit and bleeding. That's how quick it was.
And what happened as a result of that injury?
I had to have my head stapled. They stapled my head together.
You have the medical records? Can
Yes,
I see
ma'am.
them, please? Did you file a police report?
No, because I was afraid that with the custody stuff, I didn't go to the hospital till the 15th. It happened around the 13th. I was scared. He wanted me to leave with him after he hit me. He was scared, I was scared. He wanted me to leave with him. He took me to his friend's house, and his wife looked at my head. I didn't know if the police was going to come and take his daughter away. I was so close to her, attached to her, I was scared. But after 2 days, I was in so much pain, I had to go to the hospital.
So you didn't go to the hospital for 2 days?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Miss Eskridge, can you tell me who these people are?
My son and my dad.
Were either one of them present when you were assaulted?
Yes, my son.
Okay, step up here. Tell me your name.
Jerome Messenberg.
Jerome, do you live with your mom?
Yes.
Who else lives there?
My sisters and my brothers.
I have 6 kids.
Do you know Mr. Curl?
Yes.
Have you ever seen him in your home?
No.
He's never been to your home as far as you know?
No.
Tell me what you saw on the day that your mother was injured.
I was outside with two of my brothers, and my mom was standing by the balcony. I don't know what she was doing, and then I seen something hit her in the head, but I thought nothing of it because the way it bounced off, and it looked like a rubber ball, like it could be a rubber ball or something soft, so the way it bounced off.
Did you see which direction it was thrown from?
It came from inside of his curtains, inside of his house.
Did you ever see what it was?
No.
You never saw what it was?
His nephew told me, other people in the building told me what he threw.
Well, you can't tell me what anybody else
I didn't
said
see it.
to
I
you.
just seen something in his hand, and
Okay.
I didn't know what it was.
All right, Mr. Curl, let me hear from you, sir. Tell me about this party that you had in your house.
I had like a little get-together, but no, she wasn't invited. Because for one reason, she wasn't my girlfriend, and my girlfriend stayed in the next apartment. And then, but she was a friend, and yes, me and my girlfriend, yeah, we had a little misunderstanding, but she done a little things for me, but I know it was a loan. She never told me it was a loan.
Did she give you any money, sir?
She gave me like a little change. Here you go.
No, I'm not talking about change. $60, $100.
No. She bought me like probably some like McDonald's for me and my daughter.
What about these windows that got broken out, sir? You want to tell me about that?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Look at me and tell me.
That was a case that happened, and they found out that it wasn't none of me. It was a friend of mine that did that to my fiance's windows, and that's
A friend of yours?
Yes, a friend of mine. It wasn't none of me that did that. And my fiance.
When did that happen?
In the month of December sometime.
The management company talked to you about maybe evicting you?
No, they just told me since a friend of mine's done it, I got to pay for the property. For the damages.
Right.
And which I done.
Who gave you the money?
My own money.
How would she know about that?
How would she know about that? Because she stayed right above us in the same complex.
She says that she was injured at a party in your house. That's when she came and she was not invited. What do you know about that, sir?
I don't know. I have no idea about that. I haven't seen it. She said she was on the back of my patio, and I did have some company back there, and they know how she do things. She comes around and disturb everybody.
How does she come around and disturb people?
By, cussing everybody out, putting things on my doors, windows, banging on my windows early in the morning.
Like what?
Like notes.
You have any of those notes?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Miss Eskridge, why do you put these notes on their door?
It may not be what I put there. It doesn't look like...
Show them to her, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
They explained. He opened the door up and the man picked his hat up. The man had no clothes on.
And later today...
I kind of went on a high-speed pursuit for a couple of cities.
Was this the first time you were arrested, Kenneth?
Correct, it was.
No, Kenneth. Don't fib to Mother Nature.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Noelle Eskridge says ex-boyfriend Jackie Curl owes for several loans. Noelle says she received staples in her head from his assault.
I'd like you to tell me why you put those notes on the door.
Okay. After I loaned him some money and went to his door and knocked on his door, I want to look at it and make sure it was my writing. Because of the way he's sitting here lying, I want to make sure it was my writing. I went to his house to ask him for some of my money. It was a man inside of his house, half naked. And he opened the door up and the man peeked his head up. The man had no clothes on. A friend of theirs, their wife, she told me to be very careful because they swing. And I was enraged because his girlfriend chased me with her girlfriends for 3 months down in a car. When I was helping his daughter in November through December for 2 months, I was chased with women and her. I couldn't figure out why, but she had women with her chasing me till people told me what they do. And I was enraged when I found out because I felt I wasn't given the choice, that I should have been told if you were these kind of people. I was enraged when I did that. I was just shocked when that man came to the door.
Ms. Eskridge, do you take any medication?
No, I don't.
Currently under a doctor's care?
No.
In order to have a successful lawsuit, Ms. Eskridge, you have to prove two things as far as a loan is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove to the judge's satisfaction that there was, in fact, money turned over and that there was a contract that that money would be repaid. I don't find that here. The second thing is you claim that Mr. Curl assaulted you. Mr. Curl says he did not assault you. I have to be satisfied before I'm satisfied that someone has caused such serious physical injury that there's sufficient proof. And I don't find that there is sufficient proof that Mr. Curl, either intentionally or otherwise, caused you the injury to your head. What I do find is that I think it's a good idea that you don't have any contact with them anymore. Not leave notes on his door, not leave notes on her door, because I don't think it's good for you.
No.
I think if what you tell me is true, then you made a mistake in judgment as to someone's character.
Mm-hmm.
And you extended yourself, and you should think twice about doing it again.
Right.
Do you understand? But right now, what I think you have to do is say, you made a mistake with him. He's really not a nice person. I don't want to have anything more to do with them, with either him or with his girlfriend. I've got children that I have to take care of that rely on me, and I don't want to waste any more of my energy on this man or his girlfriend. Does that make sense to you?
It makes a whole lot of sense, you know.
Good. I'm glad.
You know, he stalks me. Very badly. It's bad.
Well, then what you have to do is say, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move on and not have anything to do with them because
Mm-hmm.
I have a greater responsibility, and my great responsibility is to my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be mentally alert and healthy for my kids, and I don't want to take anything away with people who aren't nice. So don't have anything to do with them anymore.
All
okay?
right. All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I just think it was outrageous because he asked me to marry him last Wednesday.
I was dealing with a woman that's kind of, maybe can be
Crazy.
fatal.
He's crazy, and he needed to pay for what he did.
Wannabe girlfriends need not to be posting notes on other women's doors and panties because they won't be so nice next time.
Case 2135, Coleman versus Washington. All parties, please step forward.
Koana Coleman is suing caretaker Jessica Washington for stolen money, travel costs, and elder abuse.
Miss Coleman, how old is your mother?
90.
Do you live with her?
I do.
How long have you been living with her?
3 years.
You're her primary caretaker?
Yes, ma'am.
She suffers from?
Dementia.
For how long?
I identified it in December of 2019, and I just stayed from that point on, sleeping on her couch.
At some point, you had to go out of town for a period of time.
Yes.
You hired the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get to her?
My cousin Andrea was friends with her, and she said that she would be a great candidate.
Did you interview her?
I spoke with her later on. She came by the house, and...
What date did you first speak to her?
Maybe about a day or two before I left.
And on what date did you leave?
The 11th of August.
How long were you going to be away for?
About 7 days.
And tell me, Miss Washington, are you employed now?
Yes, I am.
By whom?
Well, I do self-employment, and I also have my own little business on the side as well, caring for elderly people.
Okay. Did you have any special training for the care of the elderly?
I got my AED and my CPR. No, not really. Because basically I've been just dealing with family members.
For how long?
I'm going to say at least like 5 years.
And you had no special training for the care of the elderly? Okay, and did you explain that to the plaintiff?
She knew that.
Don't tell me what she knew. I didn't ask you what she knew.
Kawana Coleman claims caretaker Jessica Washington stole money from her mother, who suffers from dementia.
Okay. On what day were you supposed to report to take care of her mother?
August 11th.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Who was there?
It was Miss Coleman and her mother.
And the arrangement that you made with her was for 7 days, and you would be living with her mother.
For 7 days.
And what was she to pay you for the 7 days?
We never discussed a payment.
Well, this is what you were doing for a living, and you had jobs for the last 5 years. Is not an answer. Yes is the answer. And when you work for other people who you'll tell me about, what did you charge them?
I didn't really charge them anything. That's why I'm saying me and her never discussed a price, because she didn't know if I was going to charge her or not. Because I could have watched her mother for nothing, just because. That's family.
Okay. Well, this is what the case is about. You watched her mother for 1 day, and then you left. And according to her, her mother fell. When you left, after the 1 day, she had left $400, and you took the $400. That's what she says when you left. Your answer is that you earned that $400 in the 1 day. That's why you took it. You have a counterclaim because she has said to someone that what you did amounted to elder abuse. Now, you started on the 11th. Tell me when you left.
The date that I left was August 12th at 4:30 in the morning because I was put out.
Who put you out?
Her cousin Andrea, which is my godmother, because I called her to help me pick her mother up off the floor, which her cousin told me to leave.
No, you can't tell me what anybody else told you. Prior to 4:30 on the 12th, did Miss Coleman's mother suffer a fall?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And where did she fall?
She fell on the floor. She was sitting at the table where I was sitting at as well, too. I got up to use the bathroom.
At 4:30 in the morning?
We was up all night.
Could you tell me why?
Because she was waiting for her daughter to come back, because before her daughter left out the house, being as though that the lady has dementia and Alzheimer's, they think about the future, the past, and the present. She's thinking that her daughter is coming back because her daughter said, I will be right back. So that's why she sat up all night long. I was trying to put her to bed. She didn't want to go to bed, so I called.
Okay, so you were there from what time in the morning on the 11th?
I got there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the 11th.
So you were there for a little less than 12 hours, right? You came at 5 o'clock in the afternoon,
on
and
the
at
11th.
4:30, and at 4:30 in the morning, you left.
I didn't actually leave. I was told to leave.
But you left.
Yeah, and I didn't want to.
I don't care whether you wanted to or not. It's not particularly relevant whether you wanted to or not. I understand what happened. You left, and when you left, you took the $400 that you found.
Because the mother told me to.
You mean the mother with dementia and Alzheimer's?
Yes, her mother told me.
Just a second. You mean the mother with dementia and Alzheimer's who you stayed up with 4:30 in the morning told you to take the $400? Okay. Now you're suing her for a lot more than the $400 because she said you had to come home from your travel. She's not responsible for that. She has to return the $400 to you. You told me 2 minutes ago, Miss Washington, that you never discussed fee.
We did.
Because this is not a question and answer. You didn't even know whether you were going to charge her anything, because as far as you were concerned, it's family. Is not an answer. And you listened to the woman that you had been hired to care for because she has dementia and Alzheimer's and had fallen, and she said to you, take this $400, it's yours. What if she told you to take a piece of her jewelry? Would you have taken that?
No.
Yeah. You would have taken it because she gave it to you.
Because I'm not no thief. I wouldn't.
No, that's not what I'm telling you. You say that you took this $400 because this woman who can't make a judgment told you to take it. What if she said to you, I want you to have my pearls? Why not?
I'm not taking no jury because I have my own. I don't need her jury.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. I'll take a look at the instance that you have on your counterclaim for slander when she says that you are guilty of elder abuse. What do you have to show me?
It's in a court order.
What do you mean it was in a court order?
It is. She went and filed elder's abuse on me, plus the traveling expenses, too. I have that court order.
Just a second. Is that what you're telling me? In her case against you for the $400 and for any other travel expenses, which I'm dismissing, that part of her claim, She said you were guilty of elder abuse. That's protected. Okay, your counterclaim's dismissed. We're done.
Court is adjourned.
I think the judge did a great job. I assume that she would be able to deal with my mother. It's difficult being a caregiver, and we as people need to do much more to protect our elderly.
We've seen a couple of these cases, and it's so unfortunate to see the elderly, and whether they're ill or sick or mentally not capable of caring for themselves anymore, zero training that some of these people have to really care for them. And it's scary. We've seen it too many times. And $400 on the counter to someone to just take it for 12 hours worth of work.
You know, it's always struck me as a shame that society has and the government has created situations where you need licenses to do certain things. You need a license to tweeze someone's eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a cosmetologist. You have to have a license. You have to go to school. You have to pass an exam. You need a license to have a dog. But the most vulnerable people in the population, those people who, as she said, she didn't know whether her daughter was coming back or not coming back. She said she'd be right back, so she was waiting up for her. That vulnerable person, when it worked to the defendant's advantage, said, well, she was perfectly capable of saying to me,
take the money.
Take the money.
Yeah.
Terrible. Really frightening.
Want justice? Go to judyjustice.tv. Julian Hall is suing his neighbor, Stacey Benedum, for breach of contract and attorney fees.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2128, Hall versus Benedum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hall, you and the defendant are neighbors,
Yes, ma'am.
and your houses are right next to each other.
Hers is on the corner, mine is
Right next to her.
Yes.
Got it. What your complaint is that I see where those two, the truck and the vehicle behind it.
The trailer, yes, ma'am.
The trailer. The property to the left of that is your house.
Yes, ma'am.
And the property to the right of that is the defendant's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant, in writing, agreed to sell you that little piece of property that looks like it's been carved out of her property.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had a narrow driveway, you wanted to park these two vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Based upon that agreement, you went ahead and did some work on that piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
You put down gravel, you planted flowers, all to make it look as if that piece of property was part of your house.
Not so much to make it look like it's part of my house so I can get in it, because the agreement was that there was 3 pine trees there prior to her telling me that I can buy the property.
No. The 3 trees that are there had nothing to do with this except that they were taken down. And were they taken down and the removal of the trees was paid for by you or by her?
By both of us.
By both. Okay. So you asked to have the trees removed, and you both paid to have the trees removed.
Okay.
Not only did you cut the trees down, but you took that property and made it look like yours. You say that there was an agreement in writing for her to sell you that piece of property. So I'd like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
see that agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no agreement in writing.
Don't say anything.
The very top line.
Just a second. This is not a contract, sir, to sell land.
I have a lot more.
Shh. Not a contract to sell land. I see what she says to you. I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs. Let's get this in motion ASAP. And then she doesn't hear from you, and that's the 18th of May. And then she writes you again a little bit later, and she says her offer will expire at the end of today's business day, 5/19. And on 5/19, at 10 o'clock at night, you write to her, hey, Stacey, I've started working on things this morning. I have already been to the city of Akron, and once they are done and I get a surveyor and so on, I will keep you updated if that's okay. Last, everything is time sensitive, and I'm working as fast as I can to get the approvals. Just now seeing your texts.
Right.
Okay.
The
So
next
that's
day.
what you're relying on as a contract to purchase property.
Well, the fact that she said that she would sell it to me, and I started all the motion like she said to do. I started all the motions, got the surveyor done, got the deeds done, I got everything done.
All right. That was 5/19/2021. So show me what you did based on this and what you spent based on your belief that she had agreed to sell you the property and you had an agreement for sale, which is like a contract for sale of property. Most people know that when you sell a piece of property, you get a survey, you put it in the contract, you have a contract when the property is going to be transferred. That property would have to be surveyed because clearly you're carving a piece of property out of her property. I want to see what you did and what you spent, because if you spent money based on this, I may consider that as part of your lawsuit. Because then it turned out she didn't want to sell you the property. By the way, I wouldn't sell him the property either. It makes your property look ridiculous.
It does. We never agreed to sell the property. Okay.
Did you write, I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs?
Yes, I never agreed to sell the property until I told him he was no longer allowed to park there. It was never discussed.
What is
Depending on the stipulation that my mortgage company requires, which is an appraisal, they had to approve the selling of the property.
All I'm interested in is this one line. The other ifs fall after that. It says, I'm agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs.
Yes.
Okay, so you did that.
Yes.
I want to see the things that you started to do right after May 19th. You said, I've already started working on things this morning. This is May 19th. I've already been to the city of Akron.
Yes. This is a receipt showing the $800 from the surveyor.
Okay, may I see that, please?
There's that one. This is a receipt from the attorney where I had the deed paperwork done.
I'm looking for a date on this, sir. I'm looking for dates on these things.
Look at this one, too.
Okay, June 15th. What is this?
That's actually when I paid to have the 3 deeds made up. That's the $450 that I had to pay to the attorney for him to make the 3 deeds up. And everything Stacey had to do was sign them.
And that was June 15th. That was not quite a month later.
Right. I started the next day.
Okay. And this is so far what you spent in reliance on her statement that I'll sell you the property for $1,000.
This is a breakdown that I have, that I wrote down, that you can show her that, of everything, the timeline. And
I don't need a breakdown of the timeline, sir. I need the bills for this, not what you wrote.
Okay.
I need the bills for 6 tons of gravel. That was in July.
Here's one receipt right here. There you go.
Did he ever give you $1,000?
He never paid me.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching.
Julian Hall claims his neighbor, Stacey Benedum, owes for building costs and attorney fees. Stacey is countersuing, claiming Julian was illegally parking on her property.
Okay, so far all I have that you paid was $450 for the deeds, $800 for the survey, and gravel to be delivered.
I got the gravel in there. I also have the concrete that I had laid, flowers and stuff that I put in.
Did he pay part of having the tree stumps removed?
We split the cost and the labor of removing the debris of the trees.
No, ma'am, that's not true.
Who wanted the trees removed?
I never had a problem with the trees. I like the trees.
Don't speak.
He wanted the trees cut down so he could have more space. He was already parking underneath the trees with a smaller trailer, just not his truck. He wanted more space, so he came to me and said, hey, what if I split the cost of the cutting of the trees? I said, that's fine, I'll split the cost. That's fine with me. And then I agreed to let him continue to park there as long as there was no tire marks. That's what it was. And then he built this thing.
Well, he formalized parking there. Okay. At what point did Miss Benedum tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
This actually started on 4/3 of 18.
I'm not interested. I'm interested in the beginning of these texts, where you clearly had discussions, trees were removed. I don't quite understand why she allowed you to remove the trees, and I don't understand the whole transaction.
Because it wasn't my choice.
Just a second, it was your choice. You wanted to park there. That's what you wanted.
But the trees was dying.
I don't care if they were dying. I don't care if they were shriveled up. I don't care. You carved out a piece of property. Now, if you carved out a piece of property that belongs to her and you didn't have an appropriate agreement in writing, which it has to be, then I believe, based upon her statement that you acted on, you're entitled to whatever you spent to renovate that property. Do you understand? You're not entitled to the property.
No, I understand.
You're not entitled to the property. You're entitled to what you spent to renovate the property. So now I want you to tell me, on what date did she tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
That was 7/20 of 21. After I got everything done and called her, and asked her, could she meet me at the bank? She said, no, I'm not selling to you for $1,000. But it goes deeper than that. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It goes deeper than that because when it came to the trees, I didn't approach her with the trees. She came to me and said, since the tree was done, I said, well, I'll go in half with you. At that point, I said, when can I use the property? She said, you can use it as long as you need it. So that's when I started investing all this money into the property.
So what? I don't care. She said to you, you can use it as long as you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I said nothing permanent.
She said, as long as I need it. That's why I invested the gravel.
Okay. What I'm telling you, sir, is the purchase and sale of property has to be with a certain formality. If you dealt with an attorney, the attorney would tell you that it had to be in a formality, signed by her, signed by you, the contract that provided for sale, when it took place, what the survey was, whether her bank would agree to let her sell off a piece of the property because you have a mortgage, all of those things. That's why agreements to sell real property, which is land, have to be in accordance with a certain set of rules. This doesn't make it. However, if you relied on her statement in order to improve the property, to make it comfortable for you based upon her text message, I believe that you are entitled, based upon the text message, to what you spent to improve it. But you have to understand, she's not going to let you park there anymore.
And I'm okay with that.
Just a second. Are you still parking there?
No, ma'am.
Since when?
I would say September of 2022.
So you were parked there in July of 21, August of 21, September of 21, October of 21, November of 21, December of 21, January of 22, all the way up to September. You were parking there.
This is because we had...
Don't give me a because.
No,
that's either a yes or a no.
I was parked there, but we also had a civil case, too.
Which he dismissed 2 days before.
We had a civil case. She called the police.
He called the police on me twice.
The question was, when did she tell you she wasn't going to sell you the property?
September, when she agreed not to meet me at the bank. That's when she told me she wasn't going to sell.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
I never knew we were meeting at a bank.
Just a second. So
I can do better
in
than that.
September of 2022, she advised you.
No, I'm sorry, it was August of 2021.
Well, show me in August of 2021 that you told him you weren't selling him the property.
Here's.
Okay, I'll take both, Kevin. Thank you.
And this was after she agreed.
Shh. Okay. I'm just looking for the date on this.
Yeah, there's not a date on there, I'm sorry, but that was after May 18th of 2021. That was maybe July or August of 2021 when I told him, since he didn't meet all the requirements, that I no longer want to sell
What
it.
requirements?
He never met the requirements of paying me the money or getting the land appraised. The only thing he didn't do that my mortgage required is the appraisal.
Ma'am, that wasn't true because I did everything that the city of Akron told me to do, who deal with this on a regular.
Did you get an appraisal?
I got the land surveyed. She didn't tell me about nothing about appraisal until after I got everything done.
That's why you have a contract in writing for the sale of property, sir. I don't think you did anything intentionally wrong, but there was an appraisal that was necessary. Clearly, if she has a mortgage and a bank is giving her a certain amount of money on a parcel of property, and she wants to sell off a piece of that property, the bank is going to want to know how much the value of the property has diminished by her selling it to you. So you have to have an appraisal. Do you understand?
I understand that.
Okay, and you didn't have an appraisal. I'm not going to tell it to you again. And all I want to know is when she first told you that you didn't have a deal. So once she told you that you didn't have a deal, whatever else you invested in this property was on you.
No, and I didn't invest anything else other than getting an attorney and paying everything I need to pay him.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for? You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free because she was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to it.
Julian Hall has accused his neighbor, Stacey Benedum, of breaking their agreement. Stacy claims there was never an agreement and is countersuing for parking fees.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Because I had already had an investment after she said she was going to sell it to me. Once the attorney got involved, he told me to dismiss the case. Then after that, like 3 days later, I moved off the property.
Just a minute. So who brought a civil case?
I did.
When?
Last year of 21.
And what happened with that case?
It was dismissed.
What did you bring a case against her for?
For breach of contract.
It was dismissed because there was no contract.
Your Honor, can I say something?
What?
He made all these improvements in 2018 before we ever discussed selling the property.
You mean he put the gravel in?
Yeah.
Well, how could he put the gravel in over trees?
The trees were cut down in 2018.
Is that right, sir? Hey,
that's correct.
The trees
yes,
that were cut down in 2018, well before this.
Yes.
So you did use it. You used it for how many years? You used it 18, 19, 20, and 21. You used it. You used it. You had value from it. You had value from somebody else's property. You used her property for you to park on. You can't.
I wouldn't have done none of this if she would have told me no. Every move that I made, I asked her first. I got it in a text message. I asked her, can I do this? Can I do this? She said, yeah, go ahead and do it. If she would have said no, I wouldn't have done none of it. I wouldn't have put a dime into the property.
I'm not going back to 2018, sir. If you made these improvements in the property in 2018 or 2019, before there was any hint of a writing that she was going to sell you property.
She had a verbal that I can park there as long as I wanted to.
Okay, your case is dismissed, Mr. Hall. You don't have a case. You did park there until she told you not to park there anymore. And you had the benefit of parking there for at least 3 years.
I got money invested that she told me
you
that
had
I
the
can do
benefit
it.
of parking your things there for at least 3 years. Are they gone now?
His truck and trailer are, but the gravel's still there, and we have to clean up, get rid of that stuff.
It was a huge mistake, so you're going to have to take care of that yourself.
Okay.
And I would take care of that because that looks ridiculous.
I will.
That looks ridiculous. You have a counterclaim.
Yes.
For parking. Forget it.
But listen, I told him he couldn't park there back in May of 2021. He continued to park there till...
So you should have been more vigilant.
My attorney didn't notify him till May of this year, of 2022, that if he continues to park there, we'll charge him $75 a day. And he continued to park there until the case was dismissed in August of 2022. So I'm only suing him for May of 2022 to August of 22.
And did he move it?
He did.
Okay. You still living there?
Yes.
Do you talk to him?
No.
Had you talked to him previously?
Yeah.
We had a good relationship.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching. And if she had it appraised, and if it's something that you want, and she had, I guarantee you that that little piece of property would be appraised at a far higher cost than $1,000. Guaranteed. And I guarantee you that her bank would say, you can't let him buy that piece of property for $1,000. How much of a mortgage are you carrying?
$76,000.
Not going to let her sell off that piece of property. You had the benefit of that piece of property for several years. I have to tell you that I really think that it's much nicer to look at plain grass than it is to look at a trailer and a truck from her backyard.
Your Honor, I wouldn't have done none of it if you would have said do it.
Do you know what your attorney said to you? I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And Mr. Hall, that's what I'm telling you. I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And from what I know now, this all started in 2018 before there was any discussion of buying the property that you can prove to me. Because the thing that you gave me was in 2021. I have to tell you, you never had a problem because she was a good neighbor. If she let you park on her property, so if you think you're the one who's been aggrieved here, the truth of the matter is I don't think that you're the one who was aggrieved here. She let you park on her property. I have to tell you, I wouldn't have let that happen. I had a neighbor who had an easement. And I said, all I want from you when I bought the house was I want you to say that you will never try to claim this property by adverse possession and that you understand that it's my property. And then you can use it because it was a place that looked like it was part of his driveway. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not signing that. I said, if you don't sign it, I'm going to put a fence right in the middle of your front lawn, which is where my property line is. I don't hear from him. I said, you have 24 hours to sign the paper or I'm putting a fence right in the middle of your front lawn because that's my property and you have an easement. And he didn't sign it. He would have lived with the fence until today because it's still there. Now his children are living with the fence because he's gone. You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free for 4 years. For free. Because she was a good soul. She's not a bad guy. She was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2. She let you park there for 4 years.
I wouldn't have been there.
Goodbye, we're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
She knew what type of work I did, so she said as long as I needed it.
It was just a tough lesson of being nice to the wrong person.
It did look like it was part of my yard, so I get that part.
I hope we can be cordial and just move on with our life.
It is what it is.
This is a great example of the statute of frauds and why it exists. So all writings for the sale of land, real estate, have to be in writing and signed by both parties. I'm sure it was created for situations just like these. There's a lot of moving parts. There's mortgages, there's banks involved a lot of the times.
There are easements, there are water rights,
Exactly.
there are all kinds of things.
Legally, they're some of the most complex documents that get drawn up. So it can't be a text message for $1,000 to sell off a piece of land without all the boxes being ticked.
Right. After May of 2021, when she wrote that piece...
For his detrimental reliance on the statement.
For his reliance on that statement to his own detriment by putting in gravel and other stuff.
But then it came out, it was way
It was
before.
put down in 18 before she ever said anything about selling
Took it upon himself.
Yeah, that would be on him.
Yeah.
And I don't feel badly for him because he got to park on property that wasn't his.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton are suing Mary's brother, Michael Manry, for medical bills and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2117, Favre Stockton versus Manry.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Manry, this is your sister.
Correct.
And that is her.
Fiance.
And you have a son who is 19.
Yes, Your Honor.
How many other children do you have?
I have 3 altogether.
How old?
One is almost 30, the other one is 18, and then I got the 19-year-old, which one here.
Okay. And your son, who is now 19, is the subject of this case. Who had custody of the children?
I got custody of Dakota now.
When did you get custody of the children?
Only when he was 18 years old.
Do you have those papers, sir?
Yes, I do.
May I see them, please? Okay, so this grants you, sir, legal and physical custody of Dakota Manry until further order of the court. So what this case is about now, and I assume from what I've read, that Dakota has certain special needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And because of his special needs, he is unemployed. Did he finish any sort of a high school?
He graduated.
He graduated from
Yes.
high school?
Yes.
Did he go to a special school?
He went to a regular school, but he was in special education.
And when he graduated, did he graduate when he was living with you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what your case is about. At some point, according to you, you have a niece. And your niece wanted to have Dakota come and stay with her for a couple of days. You were at the time, according to your answer, sort of in between residences. You were evicted from one place and going someplace else?
I was in the process of moving. I got my niece to go with me to, ask her if she'll bring me to go get Dakota by my cousin's house. And she said, sure.
Okay. Dakota went to live for a few days, at least, at your niece's house.
No, not live there. No, not live there. No, ma'am.
Well, he was there overnight.
He was over there overnight.
How many nights was he there overnight?
I think about maybe a week. I was supposed to be
Okay.
3 days.
So he was there.
Yeah.
During that time, you, who are his aunt,
Yes, ma'am.
went to your niece's house and you saw Dakota there.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, became concerned because, according to you, it looked like he hadn't showered in a week.
He was in dirty clothes. He just looked awful.
So you decided to take him to live with you.
I asked him, I said, do you want him to the house to stay, a little while, where he can eat and all that, because he looked like he hadn't ate either.
Okay. Well, this is what your case is about. You decided to take him, didn't discuss it with his father. During the time he was with you, he had some expenses. You want his father to be responsible for those expenses, and you want his father to return certain of his personal property. That's what the case is about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, let me deal with all things legal. I have an order here dated January 21st, 2021, which grants physical and legal custody of Dakota to his father. Do you have any subsequent order granting you custody or guardianship, is my question.
I have power of attorney.
That is not the same thing. Can I see what they have?
Power of attorney when I didn't give a permission. I got custody. Okay.
Okay, this was signed by Dakota, so he's giving you legal power to act on his behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Dakota, by signing this power of attorney, he's saying that I am a whole person, and I give you the right to make medical decisions for me if he can't do them. It's a general power of attorney in case he becomes unable to make decisions on his own. This is an order of custody. You have power of attorney. Power of attorney suggests to me that Dakota wants to emancipate himself from his father, wants someone else to act on his behalf. It becomes a complex question because if Dakota has special needs and if he can't act on his own, and a court has already ruled that his father should have custody of him, either you have a power of attorney and he's emancipated, in which case his father's not responsible for any of his medical bills, or this is invalid because he can't sign a power of attorney because he doesn't have the mental capacity to understand all of the implications of this power of attorney. Now, your nephew was in special classes.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know what the nature of his disabilities are?
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
Is that his diagnosis, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
He had, according to you, after you took him from your niece's house, and you do acknowledge you took him without his father's permission.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We was not talking, me and him.
It doesn't make any sense if you were talking or not.
I didn't have his number, and I asked Dakota, I said, text your daddy to let him know you're coming with me. Dakota said, and he showed me where he texted Michael. Now, I don't know if it was on a different Facebook page.
No, it's your responsibility to notify his guardian who has custody that you have taken physical custody of him.
Right.
And when did you take physical custody of him? Give me the month, day, and year.
May 20th of this year, 2022.
Now, while you had physical custody of Dakota, you indicate that he had surgery.
Yes, ma'am.
And part of what you want Mr. Manry to pay for is the ambulance bill. What kind of surgery did he have?
Brain surgery, and he had a feeding tube put in him.
Just a second. What caused you to take him to a hospital or to a doctor?
Your Honor, when he arrived at the house on the 20th, he had very bad slurred speech and his balance was completely off. He was falling over. Your Honor, it was like he was a drunken man.
Let me go back to you for a second, sir. While Dakota was with you in the months just prior to May, did you notice Dakota having difficulty in his gait?
Not like he was explaining to me, I was going overboard.
No, did you?
But his balance was off, okay.
Did you inquire? Did you take him to the doctor?
I did. I took him, actually, right after I got him.
So you saw that balance was off a while ago?
When I noticed that he had headaches, all right, because his dream, thanks to me, was wrestling. He loves wrestling. I put him in wrestling. I talked to the promoters, and I did that for him. But when I seen they tell me he got body slammed, and this and that, I had to take him out of it. I got concerned because he was complaining of headaches. So I made him an appointment, and I waited for a referral. Well, when the referral came in, my kid was kidnapped.
So he never actually saw the second doctor?
No.
Okay. Do you have any records?
Well, I couldn't get the records. I tried to get them.
Once something went wrong, my kid died doing surgery. I couldn't even be there for him and all that. Anything could have happened.
Just a second. I'm following you, sir. Now, when did you take him for this brain surgery?
I took him the first week of June. I took him to do a CAT scan. And as soon as she did that, we went to the hospital. We didn't leave the hospital. They put him in the ER. And from the ER, we went to Florence, Alabama. And then the surgeons there couldn't do it because it was so big.
What was so big?
Your Honor,
brain.
they found a mass the size of a grapefruit. The first week, Dakota came to stay with us after we noticed the balance issues and the slurred speech. She took him to doctor who diagnosed him with being severely malnutritioned. Your Honor, when he came to my house, his
You're a liar.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your Honor, sorry, my apologies.
his leg was no bigger around than my wrist.
I got it. Mr. Manry, everything has to be put in perspective. You had a lot of things going on. And if Mr. Stockton's reporting to me is accurate, even though there might be some bad feeling of the way your sister and her fiance took physical custody of Dakota, you really have to be in a position to say thank you to them, because you, for whatever reason, not for lack of trying, nobody is suggesting for lack of trying, you did try to take him to a doctor, you did see that there were things wrong with him. I understand that it's not always that easy to get the right specialist to get involved in this kind of surgery, but you really have to take a breath. Yeah. And I assume it's accurate, because I cannot assume that anybody would perform brain surgery on a child that was not necessary. That
okay, why she couldn't call me?
She should, just a second. Just a second. Your sister should have called you and told you that Dakota was going into the hospital to have surgery. That would have been the nice thing to do. Did you do that?
She did.
No, she did not.
She called.
I called my mother.
Well, calling your mother.
His phone was disconnected. I did not have the new number until he called me or texted me with a bunch of drama. That's when I got his number.
You took my kid from me. You kidnapped my son no matter what.
Mr. Manry, what I want you to do is just take a breath for a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he changed and everything. The boy's mind's being poisoned by Mary and
No, so far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton claim Mary's brother, Michael Manry, owes for medical bills and personal belongings. Michael is countersuing, saying they illegally took his son from his custody.
Mr. Manry, Dakota was only at your niece's house for a short while. You already told me that when he came to you, his gate was off. So right before he went to stay for a couple of days at your niece's house, was his speech slurring?
No, he always had a speech impairment because of the disability, but his speech was not slurred at all. That is a lie. Him having the skinny arms and all, that's all
Okay,
lie.
I'm not talking about skinny arms. I'm talking about his slurred speech. What I was saying to you, Mr. Manry, is that I don't think there are any bad guys here. I don't think that you're a bad guy. And I don't think that your sister and her fiance meant any harm when they saw a situation that they thought was dangerous. And as it turned out, they were able to get him seriously needed medical care. That doesn't mean it was all done right. But what you're asking for is to be compensated by the defendant for the cost of the ambulance bill that you incurred. Now, this power of attorney was signed by Dakota, if in fact he had capacity to sign this power of attorney. It was done 2 weeks after his first surgery. So up until that time, even if I could construe this as a valid document, his father had legal and physical custody of Dakota. And I assume that's because he had special needs and is unable to live on his own. Is your son able to live on his own?
No, he never will.
Okay, so that's what I assume as a result of this order. If you want this order changed, you have to go back to the court in Mississippi. You have to be declared his guardian.
Your Honor, we did not want to be declared his guardian. The reason the POA came about to start with, during the entire surgical...
Your Honor, can I say something?
The father was aware of it. So was the mother. The mother was actually present at most all of the appointments.
It doesn't matter. The mother doesn't have custody, legal or physical.
We were under the impression, and were told she did, that he only had a temporary custody. So she showed up to say she had to sign all the documents. She was going to do this. She was going to do this. She was going to do this.
Did she sign the documents?
She signed some. Then under social services directions, Mary was informed she should go after a power of attorney. It was discussed with both Dakota and her.
It may be. That's not a lawyer. That's bad advice. Now, just before I get to the issue of clothing, property, whatever he has that's at your house, and where it should go from here, your first stop is to go back to the court in Mississippi that issued this order.
Yes, ma'am.
And say to them, I need Dakota's law guardian. He'll be appointed a guardian for himself, independent of you, and they will interview him and they will do certain evaluations of him and determine where it is that he wants to live. But you have to do that in court. You can't do that ad hoc because you relied on his mother's statements that she had the authority to sign off on these things. She did not until this is changed. And if you want to change it, you are free to go in and try, and then Dakota will be interviewed and seen by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he'll have a medical evaluation and determine whether or not he is a person who actually requires guardianship. And if he requires guardianship, you can petition for that, and you'll have a trial. This is not that trial.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Dakota have Medicare?
Medicaid.
He had Medicaid.
That would pay for the ambulance ride.
Yeah, I just want to know if he had Medicaid. He did.
I did give them the Medicaid number, and they keep sending me a bill, and I called them, and they said because it's a different state, it's not covered.
It doesn't matter. Tell them to send their bills to his father. Tell them that you do not have custody or guardianship of this child. His father has custody, guardianship, and this bill is not yours.
The bill is going to Dakota. They're going after Dakota for it. His Medicaid didn't pay for it.
They may be going after Dakota for it. They will be very smart seeking payment from people who can pay them, which is his parents. Right now, you're not legally responsible to pay for his ambulance bill. The only person who might be legally responsible for it is his father, and that will be up to the ambulance company to do. This is not your responsibility at all. So discount the ambulance bill. Next to Dakota's things, you want property that he has in his father's house. So let me go back to you with regard to my statement to you 4 minutes ago. You have to have this custody order modified. You have to go back to the same court that issued a legal and physical custody order of Dakota to his father and say, we would like guardianship of him. He wants to stay with us. He's 19 years old. He will be interviewed. He'll be analyzed. And if at the end of the day you get guardianship of Dakota, then his father may or may not turn over whatever property he has. Dakota's never worked. So whatever property he has was either purchased or given to him by either his mother or his father or other relatives.
A lot of it was his mom that paid for the stuff.
I don't know that.
No, the bottom line is why all this balls down through, Your Honor.
So far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about. You're not losing. You're not losing. What I'm telling the plaintiffs is that if they think that they can provide a more pleasant, stable environment for Dakota, they have the right to petition for guardianship of him. Now, it would be in Dakota's best interest long-term if he were to have contact with both his mother and his father. Contact. I'm not saying live with. Mother, father, and his aunt, and his soon-to-be uncle, as soon as you make up your mind and give her a ring. It's in his best interest. He needs the largest community that he can.
I agree.
Okay, we're going to stop throwing barbs because that only serves to inflame already raw emotions. I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted in this massive surgery that your son had, but I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton have accused Mary's brother, Michael Manry, of owing for an ambulance bill. Michael claims Mary and Jason took his son without his permission.
What I'm telling you is a very simple procedural thing where you have to go. You can't sue him for the return of Dakota's things unless you have guardianship of Dakota.
Understood.
Because he already is the subject of a recent order of custody from a court. That's what you have to have. You can take that bill from the ambulance service, put it in an envelope, we'll get you the address, and that's where that goes. That's his father, who is his legal parent under this order. So send that bill to them so you don't have to worry about that bill. As far as his property is concerned, that has to go along with an order of custody or guardianship, and that's something that you should do. But, Mr. Manry, I am not making a decision with regard to his custody or not. What I'm asking you is, until a court reviews whatever orders they're going to make with regard to custody and guardianship, first, I know you may be angry, but they probably saved his life by getting him to the doctor that they did. And if they removed a massive tumor from his brain, you should say, thank you for doing that, because it was a month after he was living with you. Someone else took your son and saved his life. And for that, at least, you have to be grateful. You can be angry. You can be angry that you didn't get it done before. You can be angry that somebody else did it without consulting you. You can be angry at all of those things. But at the same time, you have to feel grateful that it was done.
There wasn't no reason they kidnapped my son.
Okay. Mr. Manry, you keep going back to the same song.
I was worried about
You keep going back to the same song. And what I'm saying to you is, their next stop, if Dakota wants to live with them, and he's right now over 19 years old, is to the court who issued the order to modify that order. All I'm saying to you is, I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted or didn't participate in this massive surgery that your son had. But I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that. What I'm telling you is, you have to love your child more than you, at this moment, dislike your sister and her fiancé, because they were able to take control of a situation and get your child fixed. So is Dakota, just for my own, is Dakota angry with his father?
He's angry that his father won't return any of his wrestling. He is correct. He is a huge wrestling fanatic.
Okay. What particularly does he want? He wants his wrestling?
He wants his wrestling belts. They have replica belts that were made. He wanted his PlayStation 4 and the wrestling games.
PlayStation 4, I'm not interested in that. He wants his wrestling belts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yana, can I show you something right quick on my phone? Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he changed and everything. The boy's mind's being poisoned by Mary and Jason.
What I'm telling you, Mr. Manry, that's for another court and another day. When Dakota has a lawyer, you may have a lawyer to modify this custody order. Right now, he would like his wrestling belts.
Oh, I want my son to come home.
Okay, then I strongly urge you to go to the court, file a petition against them for custodial interference, or you go to court and file an application for guardianship of Dakota, which is a much more positive thing to do, and let a court that has the social work services, the psychiatric services, evaluate Dakota and figure out in whose best interests are we supposed to place faith. And I think if he is a thinking young man, and you told me that he is because he wants these things that are important to him, he should be able to have a say with whom he lives. Now, you have my ruling. Your next stop, folks, is to modify the order of the court in Mississippi that gave his father custody, physical and legal custody of him. You have to petition for guardianship. That's your next step. So, in that regard, your case is dismissed. Send the ambulance bill to his father.
I got a counter-suit,
We're done.
Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it, sir.
Okay. I did everything I can for my kids, and
My brother, he said nothing but lies.
when somebody takes your kid without your permission,
But, you know, that's him. I mean, that's what he does.
you don't know where they're at, and you're going crazy because you don't know where your kid's at, that's kidnapping.
I should get a thank you out of it, but he's not going to do that.
I want my son to come home to his daddy because I love him very much. That's my son.
It's about him. It's not about her. It's not about her and her brother. It's not about me and her brother.
My son, I love him. I'll do anything in the world for him.
It's about Dakota.
So you didn't listen to the defendant's counterclaim back there for emotional distress for, I believe it was $3,500. I would have given that to him. I don't think anyone was acting maliciously in this case. Like you said to the father, he should be grateful that his son is alive and his sister took action when he might have been stumbling a little bit. But That's what that cause of action is for. When someone takes an action that was legally incorrect, and here, the plaintiffs had no legal right to take him to get that surgery. I agree that he should have had it and it all came from a good place. However, when you take an action that causes somebody else such severe emotional distress, and I would consider taking someone else's child in for the riskiest surgery that probably exists, qualifies as causing some severe emotional distress. So I probably would have awarded him that if I was ruling.
Well, so let me give you the reason that I didn't bother to hear it. I think the aunt and her fiance had nothing but pure motives in taking this 19-year-old who they say appeared to be malnourished and they say was diagnosed as being malnourished, which is possible, and it's possible that it was all related to this brain tumor that he clearly had that was impairing his stability, and he was with his father for a year while this tumor was growing. I don't think that they had malicious intent.
Neither do I.
And I think that but for their actions, this 19-year-old boy probably would be dead. If they took out the tumor that was the size of a grapefruit, I would say 6 months later or 8 months later, there's a strong probability that would affect the optic nerve, affect the carotid artery, and gone. So although I could understand his annoyance, from the time they went to live with him until his surgery was a month. And I actually don't believe that this father didn't know where he was for a month, because they evidently have a living mother who they're both in touch with. He was moving around, phone disconnected. At the hospital, the mother showed up. She said, I can sign the documents. Well, you know, you're involved in major surgery for a child. Your focus is not on your brother, who did not take care of business for a year. So I'm going to leave that up to a family court judge to determine who should have custody, and I probably guarantee you that custody will remain with his aunt, because that's what Dakota wants. Father may be angry, but that's what's going to happen. I have no doubt that the father loves him. He did not take good care of him for the year.
Sure.
And so I wasn't going to reward that by giving him any money against these people who had nothing but the child's best interests, when for a year he really didn't take care of business with his son. And that's why I didn't hear his case for emotional distress.
Understood. Thank you.
Hello mọi người. Hôm nay thì mình sẽ cùng các bạn tô màu cho bức tranh về một cô gái đây nha. Đầu tiên thì mình sẽ tô mái tóc nha. Giờ mình sẽ tô chiếc điện thoại nha. Vậy là mình sẽ có chiếc áo. Rồi mình sẽ tô nốt chiếc quần. Như vậy là mình cũng đã hoàn thiện xong cho bức tranh rồi. Đây chính là bức tranh của mình sau khi đã được hoàn thiện nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã cùng mình theo dõi. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại nhé.